Chapter 203. Jun Haoyan's domineering attitude shocked everyone present. One had to know that he had just beaten up two sacred lords until they were vomiting blood. Every saint lord must also be a peerless genius. Perhaps 1,000 years ago, they were already influential figures in the Wushan continent. They were definitely powerful, and truly stood at the peak of the eastern wilderness. But what about Hao Tian's holy son? He was just a young genius who had risen recently. At most, he could be considered the strongest genius of the younger generation. But such an existence had actually caused two peerless sacred lords to suffer heavy injuries, and even dyed the sky red with their blood. At such a young age, he had already achieved such glorious results. It was enough to shock the entire Wushan continent. With Hao Tian's holy son's strength, he was truly worthy of the title of a peerless expert on the continent. Everyone who saw this scene felt as if they were in a dream. However, the scene before his eyes was so real. At that moment, Jun Haoyan was standing in the sky. His purple robes fluttered in the wind. His gaze was as sharp as a knife, and he exuded a domineering aura. The 18 Sacred Lords' great universal boundless relic was indeed powerful. It had allowed him to reach the peak of the immortal longevity realm. According to Jun Haoyan's estimation, he could still maintain the immortal longevity realm for 18 more incense sticks of time. Jun Haoyan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The small Lane Temple's most precious treasure was indeed a good item. Of course, Jun Haoyan wasn't being arrogant right now. He also knew that this power didn't belong to him. His true strength was at the peak of the second level of the Transcendence realm. With his true strength, he wasn't able to fight against a sacred lord. If he successfully resolved this crisis this time, the small Lane Temple's contribution would be the greatest. All of this could only be settled after this battle ended. At that thought, Jun Haoyan slowly raised his head. His eyes shone with a strange light, and an extremely sharp aura appeared on his body. So this is the strength of a sacred lord. It seems like this is all there is to it. Jun Haoyan's lips curled into a smile. He ignored the anger on the two holy lords' faces and attacked again. Jun Haoyan's move was still the same as before, blasting out a fierce punch. Humph! Do you really think that you can defeat us by relying on external items? That's simply wishful thinking. Holy son of Haoyan, you are still too inexperienced. The real battle has only just begun. Upon hearing Jun Haoyan's mocking words, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader were enraged. As holy lords, they had actually been defeated by a young man. If news of this spread out, how could they still have the face to be holy lords? Although there is a saying that the student surpasses the master. But if it really happened to them, no one wanted to see it happen. As the most powerful cultivators in the eastern wilderness, they would never allow themselves to be defeated by a young boy. Moreover, they believed that Jun Haoyan's current strength had been boosted by external items. Soon it would disappear. Next, they had to use all their strength to suppress Jun Haoyan. Only then could they regain some of their dignity as holy lords. Subsequently, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader did not hesitate at all. In order to regain their dignity, they joined forces and executed a terrifying mystique. After all, the two holy lords were immortal realm cultivators. They could change the heavens and earth with just a lift of their hands. Under the combined efforts of the two holy lords, the entire heavens and earth changed. Even the wind and clouds changed color. In the next instant, Jun Haoyan stood next to the two of them. In an instant, the three of them had already exchanged more than 1,000 blows. The two holy lords were indeed the most powerful cultivators in the eastern wilderness. When they joined forces, they were even more terrifying. At this moment, the two of them had actually suppressed Jun Haoyan. The Azure Cloud Sacred Leader and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader did not hold back at all. Every move they made was fatal. They wanted to use Jun Haoyan's name to wash away their humiliation. Boom! 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 The battle between the three of them was like a chaotic battle between ferocious beasts. It was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Jun Haoyan's fists were like a primordial beast. Every time he punched out, the heaven and earth essence chi would collapse. If it were not for the fact that the Langya sacred ground was under him and was protected by the array, it would have collapsed. The combination of the all-secret word and the battle's secret word caused the door of heaven and earth to activate from time to time. The spear of underworld would also shoot out from time to time. In short, every time Jun Haotian attacked, the two holy lords would tremble in fear. Such a method of attack was simply too violent. If they were not careful, they could be severely injured. At this moment, Jun Haotian directly circulated the battle's secret character with a thought. In an instant, 10 times the combat strength exploded in Jun Haotian's body. At the same time, there were 18 supremacies chanting scriptures behind Jun Haotian. There were also 12 demon gods supporting him. After a while, Jun Haotian finally found a flaw in the Green Cloud Saint Lord's defense and threw a punch at him. Boom! Jun Haotian suddenly attacked the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader's flaw. Naturally, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader could not dodge in time. In the end, Jun Haotian's horrifying punch landed on the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader's shoulder. Boom! In the next moment, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader's shoulder exploded. His black hair fell to the ground as he retreated and spat out mouthfuls of blood. At this moment, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader's hair was disheveled, and he was in a sorry state. He did not look like a sacred leader at all. His entire body crashed into the ground, creating a huge crater in the ground. After using the battle's secret word, Jun Haotian had defeated the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader in an instant. No wonder it was one of the 9 supreme esoteric words. The battle's secret word was unparalleled. The strength of the attack was simply shocking. After defeating the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader, Jun Haotian slowly turned his attention to the All-Heaven Sacred Leader. Previously, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader had worked together to suppress Jun Haotian. But now that the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader was injured, he had to fight against Jun Haotian alone. Seeing this, the All-Heaven Sacred Leader suddenly felt immense pressure. He looked at Jun Haotian and was puzzled. The Holy Sun had broken through with the help of external items. Why hadn't he used up all his energy yet? He was also puzzled. His cultivation level was higher than Jun Haotian's. Why was his strength so much weaker than his? What the All-Heaven Sacred Leader did not know was that all this was caused by Jun Haotian's strength of the Hell-Crushing Divine Elephant. After cultivating the strength of the Hell-Crushing Divine Elephant, which was a supreme cultivation technique, whether it was in terms of strength or true essence, Jun Haotian was an unparalleled existence. Moreover, Jun Haotian had the battle's secret word from the 9 supreme esoteric words. This power could not be described with the word terrifying. Feeling Jun Haotian's terrifying aura, the All-Heaven Sacred Leader felt as though he was in an endless hell and would be devoured in the next moment. Rumble! In the next moment, Jun Haotian finally found the All-Heaven Sacred Leader's weakness again. In the end, Jun Haotian did not hesitate and punched the All-Heaven Sacred Leader's chest. Poof! In the next moment, the All-Heaven Sacred Leader was sent flying. His chest exploded and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. At this moment he could not even resist. At this point, the 2 sacred leaders had been defeated by Jun Haotian. Both of them were severely injured and could not use their peak strength. Countless people were dumbfounded when they saw Jun Haotian turn into a god of war. No matter what happened in the Langya sacred ground, Jun Haotian's name would spread across the martial god continent and even the surrounding continents. The whole world would hear of his name. At this moment, Jun Haotian's body was like an ancient sacred mountain. He stood still and was about to follow up with another attack. Dong! However, at this moment, a loud explosion attracted his attention. Tao Xian was sent flying back and collapsed in the Langya sacred ground. He had suffered a terrifying injury. At the same time, a powerful aura erupted from the extraterritorial region. The Langya mountain and river painting fell and retracted its divine power. It stood above the sacred ground and could not rush into the void again. Apparently, it was suppressed by the 2 supreme weapons. Just like Tao Xian, the outcome of the battle had been decided. The supreme weapons were suppressed, and the sacred leader was defeated. Even though Jun Haotian was extremely terrifying, in everyone's eyes, his ability was still limited. There were too many experts when the 5 forces joined forces. It was not something a single sacred ground could deal with. When the surrounding people saw this, they sighed slightly. Whether it was Tao Xian or Jun Haoyan, their strength was beyond everyone's imagination. However, they were facing the 5 top forces. It was impossible for one person to defy the heavens. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation facing the attack of the 5 top forces. This was the inevitable outcome. No one could stop them. Not even the powerful Holy Lord of Langia, Tao Xian, or the current Holy Son of Haoyan. One had to know that they were facing the 5 top forces of the martial god continent. There were peerless experts like them in the sacred ground. This great battle was, in fact, a battle between experts. If they wanted to win, they had to defeat the experts of the other side. Otherwise, even if they sacrificed a lot in this battle, it would be useless. If Tao Xian and Haoyan Holy Son of Haoyan were defeated, there would be no chance of winning this battle. Ha ha ha, Haoyan Holy Son of Haoyan, so what if you win? Today Langia's sacred ground will be destroyed. At this moment, the Qingyan sacred leader and Luotian sacred leader appeared again, and looked at Jun Haoyan with a cold smile. Although they were seriously injured, it was not fatal. At this moment, they only wanted to see Jun Haoyan fall. Only then could they wash away the humiliation they had suffered. For a mere junior to be able to achieve such a feat, it has indeed caused us to raise our eyebrows. However, it ends here. At this moment, Demon King Jiao slowly walked out of the void. Demon King Jiao was still as domineering as before. He did not seem to be in a sorry state after the battle. Although Tao Xian was powerful, it was already rare for him to be able to last so long in the hands of several sacred leaders. Demon King Jiao and he were both in the immortal realm. It was impossible for Tao Xian to injure Demon King Jiao while being surrounded by several people. This was also the reason why Demon King Jiao was so calm. If the two of them were to fight alone, Tao Xian would definitely not be defeated so easily, and Demon King Jiao would not be so relaxed. Unfortunately, Langia's sacred ground was facing the combined attack of 5 major forces at this moment. It was simply unrealistic for them to fight alone. Even if the 5 major forces had joined forces, they had already planned to use their strongest force to completely destroy Langia's sacred ground. Haha, you're just bullying me with numbers. If you have the guts, fight me alone. I, the Holy Son, will defeat all of you one by one. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan sneered and mocked. At this moment he was standing beside Tao Xian. Although he was not a sacred leader yet, the aura he exuded was not weaker than the Qingyan sacred leader and other sacred leaders. He truly had the bearing of an expert. When Demon King Jiao heard Jun Haoyan's words, he immediately smiled. Eliminating demons and protecting justice is a principle that everyone upholds. Why should we fight alone against those who have fallen into the demonic path and harbored demons? At this moment, the Alcate sacred leader spoke slowly. He was completely dismissive of Jun Haoyan's words. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. Merits and demerits had always been determined by the winner. This had been an iron law since ancient times. Today, under their joint forces, Langia's sacred ground was definitely going to be destroyed. From now on, the facts of today would be determined by them, and Langia's sacred ground would become a thing of the past. Future generations would talk about it and say that it was just a sect that had mistakenly fallen into the demonic path. Boom! It was also at this moment that the void shook, and 2 vast auras descended, suppressing Langia's sacred ground. They were the Alcate Cauldron and the Qingyan Divine Furnace of Creation. They suppressed the void in the entire world. If Langia's mountain and river painting was not still emitting its power, Langia's sacred ground's array would have been shattered. But obviously this state could not be maintained for long. At this moment, Langia's mountain and river painting was already suppressed. Sooner or later, it would not be able to protect Langia's sacred ground. But once it lost the protection of the supreme weapon, the 5 forces could directly invade and attack Langia's sacred ground with all their might. At that time, Langia's sacred ground would have a hard time resisting. And at that time, the fate of Langia's sacred ground would be decided. No matter what you say today, Langia's sacred ground will not be captured without a fight. At this moment Tao Xian, who was standing beside Jun Haoyan, spoke. At this moment, although he was severely injured, his life was not in danger. In fact, at Tao Xian's level, his body was no longer ordinary. After reaching the immortal realm, the human body had been refined and the state of life had undergone a qualitative change. Just like the battle between Jun Haoyan and the two holy masters earlier. Even if Jun Haoyan could defeat the two holy masters, he would not be able to defeat them. But if he wanted to kill the two holy masters, it would be difficult for him to do so. The higher the level, the stronger the power. This was the truth. Hehe. Looks like Langya sacred ground is going to be removed from the 7 great sacred grounds today. Tao Xian, do you think you can stop us with just one supreme weapon? That's right. Today, in order to destroy Langya sacred ground, we have come prepared. Alcade Holy Master, and the others spoke one after another. They looked at Tao Xian and Jun Haoyan and sneered. Although at this moment, they could be considered to have suffered heavy casualties. But the 5 forces combined could still suppress Langya sacred ground. Can you stop talking nonsense? If you want to fight, just fight. Don't bark here. Seeing Alcade Holy Master and the others chattering, Jun Haoyan was getting impatient and said directly. Behind him, the elders and disciples of the Langya sacred ground looked determined. They were ready to fight to the death, and were ready for a great battle. Even though they were facing the crisis of being destroyed, no one ran away. Seeing this scene, Jun Haoyan was a little touched. If he did not identify with Tai sacred ground in the past, it was completely different now. In order to protect him, everyone in the sacred ground had paid a high price. And he, Jun Haoyan, would not disappoint the people present. Okay, let's start. Alcade Holy Master took a step forward and True Origin surrounded him. Behind him, Azure Cloud Holy Master did the same. Rumble. They injected a powerful force into the supreme artifact to revive it once again. This time, they had to use the 2 supreme weapons to restrain Langya's mountain river painting. Only in this way could they kill without thinking about the consequences. Buzz! 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 At this moment, Langya's mountain river painting burst out with dazzling light. The mountains and rivers in it were, as if they were about to be deified. The dazzling light swept across the entire area and resisted the 2 supreme weapons. No one knew how much pressure the supreme weapon of Langya sacred ground was under to resist the supreme weapons of the 2 sacred grounds. Seeing this, Demon King Jiao frowned slightly. The supreme weapons were indeed powerful, although they were not as strong. But it was very difficult to completely suppress a supreme weapon. It was very difficult for both supreme weapons to do so. At this moment, Holy Master All-Heaven walked out with a smile on his face. He looked high-spirited, but whether it was the people watching from afar, or the disciples and elders of Langya sacred ground, they all felt a terrifying pressure. Boom! 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 At this moment, a huge war drum appeared behind Holy Master All-Heaven. It was engraved with dragons and phoenixes, and it was constantly rumbling. It was as if a supreme existence was beating the war drum. Just hearing the sound made one's blood boil. It was as if it was going to burst out of one's body. It was the supreme weapon of All-Heaven's sacred ground, the All-Heaven War Soul Drum. This was a terrifying supreme weapon. If a supreme weapon were to beat it, the sound could even be transmitted to other small worlds. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, the 3 supreme weapons appeared and emitted a terrifying pressure that could crush one's soul. At this moment, Langya's mountain river painting finally could not hold on any longer. This was the pressure of 3 supreme weapons. Everyone was sighing in sorrow. 3 supreme being artifacts who could resist. The destruction of Langya sacred ground was a foregone conclusion. Chapter 204. Seeing this scene, everyone sighed in their hearts. Could it be that the holy land of Langya, which had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, was really going to be destroyed today? In this battle, no one had expected that the 5 major forces would actually use 3 supreme artifacts. It could be said that the 5 major forces had put in a lot of effort this time. They were even more determined to destroy the holy land of Langya. After watching today's battle, and witnessing Great Heaven's Holy Sun's strength, the powerhouses somewhat understood the 5 major forces' purpose of doing this. If it was based on Great Heaven's previous achievements, killing the Holy Sun of the 3 major holy lands, killing Prince Jiao, and the Fox Prince. If it was just based on these, although Great Heaven's Holy Son's talent was unparalleled, and could be called the strongest of the heavenly talents. If it was just this, perhaps Demon King Jiao and the others would not be so determined to kill Great Heaven's Holy Son. However, today's battle forced the 5 major forces to kill Great Heaven's Holy Son. Great Heaven's Holy Son had only cultivated for a short period of time, but he had already reached the level where he could fight 2 holy lords. If he was given a few more days to grow stronger, he might not even put Holy Master level existences in his eyes. Now after this battle, Langia and the 5 major forces were already in a situation where only one of them would die. There was no way to resolve it. If they did not kill Great Heaven's Holy Son today, and let him escape, when he grew stronger in the future, no one in the 5 major forces would be his match. Therefore, the 5 major forces' holy lords had already made up their minds. In this battle, they had to kill Great Heaven's Holy Son, this monster. Other than that, there was no other way. In this battle, the stronger Great Heaven's Holy Son was, the more monstrous he was. Then, the 5 major forces' desire to kill him would be even stronger. Their desire to kill Great Heaven's Holy Son would be even more determined. Otherwise, they would not have spent so many resources to use 3 supreme artifacts. At this moment, the 3 supreme artifacts were emitting a destructive aura as they floated in the void. The soul-stirring aura emanating from it was enough to annihilate all living beings. With the 3 supreme weapons working together, Langia's mountain and river diagram had no way of resisting. It was suppressed by the 3 supreme weapons. Now the Langia mountain and river diagram was suppressed and could not protect the Langia sacred land. Faced with such a situation, the 5 major forces could immediately charge into the Langia sacred ground. Buzz! At this moment, the void rumbled once again. It was the sound of Langia's mountain and river diagram. It sounded like the wailing of a supreme weapon. It looked extremely tragic, just like the desperate situation that the Langia sacred land was facing. This was the supreme weapon's final cry of sorrow. No one could save it. Boom! At this moment, Demon King Jiao and the others slowly took a step forward. Now that the Langia mountain and river diagram had lost its effect, they finally decided to go all out and kill all the disciples of the Langia Holy Land. Tao Xian, I've already given you 3 chances. You're the one who didn't cherish them. Today, whether it's the so-called Langia Sacred Land or the so-called Holy Son of Haotian, they'll all be destroyed in our hands. Now, even your supreme weapons are being suppressed. Let's see who can save you. Today, Langia Sacred Land will perish. Demon King Jiao and the others looked at the Langia sacred land with extremely cold eyes. They looked at the Langia disciples as if they were looking at a bunch of dead people. Subsequently, the Azure Cloud Sacred Leader, the Alkate Sacred Leader, and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader channeled their true yuan into the supreme weapons again. This time, they wanted to use the power of the 3 supreme weapons to completely suppress the Langia mountain and river diagram. In the next moment, a monstrous aura swept across the entire Langia sacred land. Under this aura, the entire Langia sacred land was affected. Even an immortal like the Supreme Elder was trembling. The aura that the 3 supreme weapons revealed at the same time was too terrifying. Even the immortal realm powerhouses found it difficult to withstand. At this rate, they would die under this aura before the battle even began. The Langia sacred land couldn't protect you after all. Tao Xian, who was beside Jun Haotian, looked at Jun Haotian with a dejected expression. At this moment, Tao Xian was exuding a lonely aura. As the Holy Lord of Langia, he naturally did not want to see the Langia sacred land destroyed. Moreover, he had never expected that such a day would come. The Langia sacred land would eventually be destroyed by his hands. One had to know that the Langia sacred land had been passed down for a full 100,000 years. But even so, Tao Xian did not utter a single word of dissatisfaction towards Jun Haotian from beginning to end. In his heart, since the day Jun Haotian took over the position of the Holy Son of Langia, the Langia sacred land had Iwu to protect him. As the Holy Son of Langia, they had to protect him to the end, no matter what happened. This was the principle that Tao Xian had always adhered to in his heart. He had never regretted the outcome of today's battle. Holy Lord! At this moment, Jun Haoyan's voice rang in Tao Xian's ears. In the face of such a dangerous situation, Jun Haoyan's face was still calm, without a trace of fear. Tao Xian raised his head and looked at Jun Haoyan, but he was slightly stunned. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was still as elegant as before. The aura of the supreme weapon that swept across the void did not seem to have any effect on him. His body was still as straight as a pencil, and he did not bend under the pressure of the supreme weapon. In the face of Tao Xian's gaze, Jun Haoyan's eyes were extremely calm, like an ancient well. With his hands behind his back, he said slowly, "The Langya sacred land will not be destroyed today, and it will not be destroyed in the future. These small fries do not have the ability to destroy the Langya sacred land." Under the void, Jun Haoyan still made his arrogant declaration. However, when Jun Haoyan said this, not only Tao Xian was puzzled, but even the spectators were puzzled. At this point, what kind of trump card did the holy son of Hao Tian have that he dared to make such an arrogant statement? In the next moment, the holy son of Hao Tian slowly took a step forward in front of everyone's eyes. He looked at the three supreme weapons floating in the void without a trace of nervousness, and he was not affected in the slightest. It was also at this moment that the void trembled, and the sky changed color again. Countless people only felt an incomparably cold aura suddenly sweep out from Jun Haoyan's body. That was a supreme aura, a terrifying pressure that could crush everything. Demon King Jiao and the others were slightly shocked. They immediately opened their eyes and looked down. At the same time, Jun Haoyan once again received the attention of countless people. Everyone saw him standing in the air. He was indomitable, standing between the sky and the earth, between his eyebrows. A simple and unadorned immortal bell slowly appeared and enlarged, emitting beams of resplendent light. It suddenly appeared just like that, emitting an aura that could suppress the world. Dong! It was also at this moment that the ancient immortal bell gently vibrated. Boom! Countless people retreated. The expressions of Demon King Jiao and the others changed drastically as they looked at the bell. The aura it emitted was incomparably terrifying. It had the power to suppress the 9 underworlds and attack the 9 heavens, especially the endless divine light that illuminated the boundless sky. All kinds of mysterious runes were engraved on the immortal bell, and strands of vast divine might were constantly hanging down. After it appeared, the entire void and land underwent a huge change. Even the array formation below the Langya sacred ground began to riot. The 3 supreme weapons of the 5 great factions also emitted endless divine light. They actually stopped suppressing the Langya mountain and river diagram and fought against the immortal bell. This was because the 3 supreme weapons had already sensed that this immortal bell was going to destroy them. At this moment, the immortal bell shot out rays of divine light, as if it was the most terrifying existence in the world. It seemed to have appeared from the long river of time, illuminating the ancient times. Every ray of divine light was incomparably blazing. Everyone was shocked. That vast aura was about to crush the sky. No matter who it was, they would wail in their hearts after sensing this aura. That inexplicable aura swept through millions of miles of rivers and mountains. The brilliant heavenly might shook. It actually did not retreat in the face of the 3 great emperor weapons. This is actually a supreme weapon. How could the holy son of Haoyan have a supreme weapon? That's not right. Why do I feel that this sovereign artifact is extremely terrifying? It seems like even the 3 sovereign artifacts are showing signs of submitting to it. Countless people were shaken. Even though they were far away, they could still feel the pressure. This was a truly supreme aura that could suppress all the supreme existences in the 3,000 worlds. The expressions of Demon King Jiao and the others changed drastically as their bodies began to tremble. An immortal bell stood in the void, causing the momentum of the ancient times to collapse. Chapter 2. Shocking at this moment, the immortal bell was floating above Jun Haoyan's head. The aura emitted from it caused everyone present to be unable to breathe. Even Demon King Jiao and the others looked defeated. The might of this immortal bell was simply too strong. It was as if there was a living supreme being expert floating in the void right now. Even the three supreme weapons that were in a stalemate with Langya's mountain and river painting had turned around to resist the aura of this immortal bell. At this moment, Demon King Jiao's eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the immortal bell in the void. He could not believe what he was seeing. The holy son of Haoyan actually had a supreme weapon in his hands. Moreover, the power of this supreme weapon was even stronger than the three supreme weapons on his side. It was definitely a top-grade supreme weapon. At this moment, the Azure Cloud Saint Master and the others could even feel that their three supreme weapons were unable to suppress this immortal bell. They were even showing signs of being pushed back by this immortal bell. How is this possible? Where did the holy son of Haoyan get his supreme weapon? There's no such supreme weapon in Wushan continent. This is simply unbelievable. The holy son of Haoyan actually has a supreme weapon as his trump card. Impossible. This can't be real. How could he have a supreme weapon? Moreover, it's a top-grade supreme weapon. Looking at the scene in the void, the three Saint Masters' faces were as pale as paper. They could not believe it. At this moment, the immortal bell above Jun Haoyan's head was emitting an extremely powerful aura. It definitely had the power to crush everything. No one present could remain unscathed under this supreme weapon. Even the supreme weapons in their hands could not resist the power of this immortal bell. At this moment, Tao Xian's eyes were wide open as he stared at the bell above Jun Haoyan's head. His eyes were filled with disbelief. He had never expected Jun Haoyan to be able to take out a supreme weapon. One had to admit that Jun Haoyan's trump card was simply too shocking. This was a supreme artifact. Only a force like the Holy Land or the dynasty could possess such a terrifying existence. However, at this moment, a supreme weapon had appeared in Jun Haoyan's hand. Furthermore, this utmost exalted weapon was no ordinary utmost exalted weapon. Just its aura alone was enough to suppress the other three supreme weapons. It was simply too terrifying. At this moment, Tao Xian suddenly recalled what Jun Haoyan had said to him earlier. The Langya Holy Lands would not be destroyed. At this moment, Tao Xian finally understood the meaning of this sentence. That's right. The Langya Holy Lands would definitely not be destroyed today. In fact, Jun Haoyan had taken out such a frightening utmost exalted weapon. Even if Jun Haoyan had taken out a supreme weapon that was as powerful as the Langya mountain and river painting, it would still be able to guarantee that the Langya Holy Lands would not be destroyed. For the top forces of the martial god continent, possessing a supreme weapon was nothing more than a threat. More importantly, it should be an extremely terrifying trump card. Any supreme weapon, even the most ordinary supreme weapon, would be able to suppress everything. Now Jun Haoyan had taken out a supreme weapon to truly protect the Langya Holy Lands. Naturally, all the disciples of the Langya Holy Lands had also witnessed this scene. At this moment, they were all shocked and in disbelief. In fact, they were so excited that they could not even speak. When they were facing the most desperate moment, their holy son, the person they were protecting, had taken out a supreme weapon at this critical moment. This was like holding a trump card. With this supreme weapon, they could reverse the current situation at any time. Humph, holy son of Haoyan. So what if you have taken out a supreme weapon? The three supreme weapons on our side have not been fully used yet. After the Alcade holy leader recovered from his shock, he looked at Jun Haoyan with great fear. In this battle, in order to completely destroy the Langya Holy Lands, all of them had taken out their trump cards. The three holy lands of the eastern wilderness had even taken out their supreme weapons at all costs. This time, the Langya Holy Lands would definitely be destroyed. But now, the holy son of Haoyan had taken out a supreme weapon directly. At this moment, the holy son of Haoyan had completely turned the situation around and saved everything. How could the Alcade holy leader and the rest accept this scene? They had paid such a huge price for their comeback, and they had to destroy the Langya Holy Lands. They knew very well that if Jun Haoyan survived this battle, he would definitely be a genius. When he grew up, with his demonic talent, one day, Jun Haoyan would definitely take revenge on him. Just like the Kunlun Holy Ground and the Linglong Holy Leader back then. The Kunlun Holy Ground did not kill the Linglong Holy Leader when she was still weak, which led to endless troubles in the end. It caused a lot of trouble for the number one holy land of the human race. For a period of time, they could not even keep their title as the number one holy land. If not for the fact that the Kunlun holy ground was strong enough and had a strong foundation, the Linglong holy leader would have overturned it directly. And now, the holy son of Haotian was like the Linglong holy leader of the past. When he grew up, it could be said that there would be endless troubles in the future. Everyone in the five forces knew that they could not let the Langya holy ground breathe, and they could not let the holy son of Haotian live. Otherwise, everything would be over. When they thought of this, they no longer hesitated. With Demon King Jiao and the rest taking the lead, they directly took a step forward and attacked one after another, erupting with terrifying true origin without any scruples. They directly poured their true origin into the three supreme weapons, wanting to completely revive them. Now only the supreme weapons could save the current situation. Boom, boom, boom. The void rumbled as the Alcate Cauldron, Qingyan Universal Furnace of Creation, and Luotian War Soul Drum all surged with vast and unparalleled power. The entire world was in a riot. Even the ground that was protected by the Great Array could not hold on at this moment. It cracked open as if the land was about to sink. The spectators retreated again and again, their eyes filled with horror. They really did not expect the battle to escalate once again. It was truly immortal. From the looks of it, only one of the two forces could survive. The pressure of the three supreme weapons shook the world, and the vast and boundless power swept through the world. The stars and sun in the void were shaking as if the world was about to be destroyed. The three supreme weapons of the five forces had completely awakened at this moment, emitting a terrifying power, as if they were about to split the world apart. Thousands of rays of light shot out, enveloping the entire area. The endless mountains and rivers were shaking, and countless creatures were kowtowing. The power of the supreme weapons was enough to shake the world. Not many people could withstand it. It was also at this moment that Tao Xian once again controlled the supreme weapon, wanting to attack. It's fine. One bell is enough to deal with three supreme weapons. At this moment Jun Haotian spoke, telling Tao Xian not to interfere. The latter hesitated for a moment, but he still chose to believe in Jun Haotian. He immediately retreated and used the Langya mountain and river diagram to envelop the Holy Land to prevent it from being destroyed by the battle. At this moment, countless people only saw the Holy Son of Haotian walking out and slowly standing beside the immortal bell. More than half of the 18 incense sticks' time had passed, and Jun Haotian's immortal longevity realm cultivation had not completely disappeared. Therefore, at this moment, he calmed his mind and poured all the power in his body into the immortal bell. Awaken! In the next moment, Jun Haotian poured almost 80% of his true essence into it. It was also at this moment that the immortal bell shot out endless light, facing the layers of attacks of the three supreme weapons without fear. In an instant, countless people only felt that the entire world had fallen silent, and time had slowed down. Dong! A bell rang, turning into a circle of light visible to the naked eye, slowly spreading from Jun Haotian's body. At this moment, the sound of the bell rang, shattering billions of stars in the outer realm, and resounding throughout the entire universe. At this moment, countless experts in the 3,000 worlds looked up at the void, as if they could hear the sound of the bell. At this moment, the sound of the bell rang through the endless plains, even penetrating the 3,000 worlds and reaching the divine realm. Chapter 205. Dong. The sound of a bell filled with an ancient aura rang out between heaven and earth. Everyone's heart and soul were shaken. Countless people felt a sharp pain in their bodies, and in the next moment, numerous cracks appeared on their bodies. Even the peerless experts in the immortal realm felt their internal organs tremble. Blood flowed out of their mouths, and their faces turned pale. The sound of the bell was like the sound of extinction. Everywhere it passed, it left behind a tragic scene. This was a power that they could not resist. This power could easily control their lives. At this moment, the surrounding experts looked at the no-beginning bell in horror under the suppression of the immortal bell. They wanted to leave this place, but they realized in despair that they could not leave under the suppression of the no-beginning bell. This immortal bell was like the law of heaven, imprisoning them in place. Even their primordial spirits and Dharma idols were no exception. They could only endure all of this silently. They could not resist. The culprit behind all of this was not just a single sound of the no-beginning bell. At this moment, Jun Haoyan stood beside the no-beginning bell. His purple robe fluttered in the wind, and he looked extraordinary. His gaze was fixed on the void in front of him, and there was a hint of disdain in his eyes. There were the three supreme weapons that Demon King Jiao and the others were controlling. At this moment, the three supreme weapons were emitting endless power. However, when the bell of no beginning began to ring, the entire area was locked down. All the power in the void had been sealed. Looking at this scene, the top experts of the five major forces, including Demon King Jiao and the others, could not help but tremble slightly. Perhaps because they were very close to the no-beginning bell, Demon King Jiao and the others felt the greatest pressure. Even as peerless experts in the immortal realm, they were shocked to find that they could not use the true origin in their bodies. They could only watch as Jun Haoyan continued to awaken the no-beginning bell. They felt an extremely vast power on the immortal bell that seemed to be able to suppress everything. Demon King Jiao and the others could vaguely sense that there seemed to be a figure sitting cross-legged on the no-beginning bell in front of them. Just the back of the bell was enough to crush the entire world. Even the martial god continent could not withstand it. The figure sat cross-legged in front of them, suppressing everything. It was as if even the true supreme of this world could not compare to that person's back view. What terrifying existence is this immortal bell exactly? At this moment, such thoughts surfaced in their minds. Being suppressed by the bell of no beginning, they could not do anything else. They could only watch everything unfold in front of them. Even the three supreme being weapons above their heads were suppressed by the might of the bell of no beginning. What shocked Demon King Jiao and the others even more was that, under the power of the bell of no beginning, the three supreme beings were unable to resist at all, and were instantly suppressed. This scene caused Demon King Jiao and the others to be in disbelief. No matter how strong this immortal bell was, it was still a supreme weapon. How could it be suppressed so easily? Outside the arena, when everyone saw this scene, they were shocked. At the same time, they wondered if they were dreaming. Originally, the supreme weapon of the Langya sacred ground had been suppressed, and the five forces had planned to destroy the Langya sacred ground in one fell swoop. However, after the holy son of Haoyan summoned this immortal bell, the situation was instantly reversed. In fact, he had even ruthlessly suppressed the five major forces. Boom! Just like that, everyone was imprisoned on the spot. After an unknown period of time, a bell chime sounded between heaven and earth again. At this moment, everyone felt as if thousands of years had passed. When everyone regained consciousness, the chime of the immortal bell also disappeared at the same time. The immortal bell once again returned to its original state, quietly standing above Jun Haoyan's head. Rumble! It was also at this moment that another explosion came from the void. It was soul-stirring. Then a shocking scene happened. In the void, the three supreme being weapons above the heads of Demon King Jiao and the others were trembling slightly. This scene caused everyone's pupils to constrict. The supreme being weapons were actually trembling. Countless people suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill in their hearts. What was it that made the supreme being weapons tremble? The supreme being weapons represented the will of a supreme being. Now that the supreme being weapons were trembling, it meant that a supreme being was trembling. What kind of existence could make an honorable supremacy tremble? Could it be that the immortal bell in the hands of the holy son of Haoyan had surpassed the supreme being weapon category? After all, if they were all supreme being weapons, how could it suppress three supreme being weapons in an instant? Surpass the supreme being weapon category? Could it be that the immortal bell in the hands of the holy son of Haoyan was a treasure from the realm of the gods? At this moment, almost everyone had this thought in their minds. Crack! At this moment, the heavens and earth seemed to shake, and there was a sudden shattering sound. There was a strong sense of sorrow in the sound, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Hearing this sound, the Green Cloud Sacred Leader, the Alcate sacred leader, and the heavenly sacred leader's expressions changed drastically. Then they slowly raised their heads and looked up. Then, there was a look of disbelief in their eyes, as if they had seen something horrifying. Above them, there were 3 supreme being weapons suppressed by the no-beginning bell. The Alcate cauldron, the green cloud divine furnace of creation, and the all-heaven war soul drum, had all cracked at the same time. There was a fatal crack on each of the supreme being weapons. It was a frightening sight to behold. If the crack continued to expand, the 3 supreme being weapons would most likely shatter. Seeing this, the 3 sacred leaders could not help but hold their breaths. Looking at the cracked supreme being weapons, they felt a chill run down their spines. If the 3 supreme being weapons were destroyed, then from then on, the green cloud sacred ground, the all-heaven sacred ground, and the Alcate sacred ground would only exist in name. Without the supreme being weapons, the sacred grounds would not have the resources to continue to hold the title. The reason why the 7 sacred grounds of the human tribe could be passed down for hundreds of thousands of years was because of the supreme being weapons. Without the supreme being weapons, how could they be called the human tribe sacred grounds? If the 3 supreme being weapons were destroyed here, the human tribe would only have the 4 sacred grounds left. Boom! At this moment, the 3 supreme being weapons in the void suddenly vibrated violently. Sorrowful cries could be heard from the supreme being weapons. In the next moment, the 3 supreme being weapons seemed to have awakened their spiritual intelligence. A dazzling divine light suddenly appeared on their bodies, and they actually broke free from the suppression of the bell of no beginning. They directly turned into 3 streams of light that pierced through the entire heaven and earth, and went in 3 different directions. They disappeared. The supreme being weapons actually escaped. And all 3 supreme being weapons escaped? Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. The 3 supreme being weapons did not even have the courage to face the bell of no beginning. They just ran away. What's going on? Why did the 3 supreme being weapons disappear? Could it be that the 3 supreme being weapons did not dare to fight the bell of no end and ran away? This is unbelievable. Even the supreme being weapons are afraid of fighting. Supreme being. That's a supreme being. An invincible supreme being. As an extension of their will, the supreme being weapons do not dare to fight? At this moment, countless powerhouses looked at this scene as if they were in a dream. They could not believe what they were seeing. Since the beginning of time, in the hearts of all martial artists, the supreme being weapons were the supreme beings. This point of view was the same even in the entire trichiliocosm. Even in the black-yellow continent, which was ranked first in the trichiliocosm, the most powerful being there was also a supreme being weapon. It could be said that in the trichiliocosm below the realm of the gods, the supreme being weapons were the most powerful and invincible beings. But now, under the pressure of the bell of no end, the supreme being weapons actually ran away and disappeared. What did this mean? This meant that a supreme being weapon ran away without a fight. Seeing this scene, not only was Demon King Jiao and the rest shocked, but even Tao Xian and the rest were dumbfounded. At this moment, Tao Xian could clearly feel that the Langia landscape illustration in his hand was trembling. Just like the 3 supreme being weapons, it was also afraid of the bell of no end. Tao Xian took a deep look at the bell of no beginning. His heart was throbbing. This bell of no end was so powerful that it could not be any more terrifying. Impossible, this is impossible. How could a supreme being weapon run away? At this moment, Saint Master Qing Yun and the rest finally came to their senses, and their faces turned extremely pale. They had never thought that a supreme being weapon, that had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, would actually run away at this critical moment. At this moment, even their final trump card had disappeared. How were they going to fight against the Langia sacred ground? As for destroying the Langia sacred ground, that was even more of a pipe dream. Then at this moment, the 3 holy masters suddenly felt their hearts palpitating. They felt that a peerless crisis was approaching. It was like a surging river, and there was no way to avoid it. In the next moment, Demon King Jiao and the rest looked up and were instantly shocked. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was standing in the void with the bell of no end above his head. He was taking one step at a time. With every step he took, the mountains and earth would shake, the void would explode, and the stars would dim. When they saw this scene, the hearts of everyone shook, and they were extremely terrified. Could it be that the holy son of Haotian was going to attack the 5 superpowers? Yes. Now that the 3 supreme being weapons of the 5 superpowers had run away, they had lost their trump card to fight against the Langia sacred ground. However, the holy son of Haotian still had a terrifying treasure, the Bell of No End. Even a supreme being weapon had been scared away by the Bell of No End. How could Demon King Jiao and the rest be a match for the Bell of No End? Once the Bell of No End unleashed its power, it would definitely cause the world to collapse. At this moment, Jun Haotian's expression did not change. Just like before, he looked down on the people of the 5 superpowers. Now it's time to settle the score. This sentence carried a monstrous murderous intent, and it was terrifying and resolute. It was like the judgment of the god of hell. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. After the previous scene, no one dared to underestimate the holy son of Haotian anymore, because they were not qualified to do so. Even though the holy son of Haotian was only a young man, he already had the means of a holy master. With his current power, he was not any weaker than a real holy master. He already had the domineering aura of an expert, and it was terrifying. Whether it was strength or aura, it was enough to make him one of the top experts in Eastern Wilderness. Although the holy son of Haotian's cultivation was only at the peak of the 2nd level of the Transcendence realm. However, for a top genius like him, increasing his cultivation base was never a big problem. In the void, Jun Haotian took a step forward and arrived in front of Demon King Jiao and the rest. He looked down at them condescendingly. A hint of mockery appeared in his eyes. His attitude was the same as when Demon King Jiao and the rest looked at Langia's disciples. But now, the 2 of them had swapped positions. The prey had become the hunter. Everyone present could feel Jun Haotian's vast killing intent. It was as if it had materialized. It was as if it wanted to envelop everyone. As long as they were slightly closer, they would be pulled in by that aura. There was no way to retreat. Seeing this scene, everyone present sighed with emotion. In the time it took for a few incense sticks to burn, the situation on the battlefield had undergone an earth-shattering change. This speed of change really made everyone dumbfounded. It was difficult to accept, especially for the 5 major forces and Langia sacred ground. They had never thought that it would reach such a situation. Now, the Langia sacred ground and the 5 major forces were already in a situation where they would not rest until one of them was dead. There was no room for reconciliation. It was just like how the 5 major forces wanted to exterminate the Langia sacred ground previously. Now that the Langia sacred ground had the upper hand, Jun Haotian naturally would not show mercy. He wanted to kill all the 5 major forces that had come to invade them. Not a single one would be left alive. Jun Haotian's style had always been, if others did not offend him, he would not offend them. If others offended him, he would definitely kill them. Sensing the killing intent emanating from Jun Haotian's body, no one doubted Jun Haotian's determination. After all, the impression that Jun Haotian had left on the world in the past was that he was strong and domineering. Especially after he said that sentence, everyone knew that today was destined to be a bloodbath. Let's settle the score. We have only lost temporarily. Seeing Jun Haotian's domineering attitude, although the Alcate sacred leader was extremely fearful, he still put on a tough face. As the Alcate sacred leader, he could not back down no matter what. This was the dignity of a sacred leader. However, the so-called dignity of the Alcate sacred leader was not even worth mentioning in Jun Haotian's eyes. At that moment, Jun Haotian looked coldly at the Alcate sacred leader and said slowly, "Alcate sacred leader, you have inverted right and wrong. You should be killed." He actually declared that he wanted to kill the Alcate sacred leader directly. Just as everyone was stunned, Jun Haotian made his move at that moment. The immortal bell above his head emitted streaks of sharp light and kept descending. It merged with Jun Haotian's body. A shocking radiance exploded from his body. In just an instant, he appeared in front of the Alcate sacred leader. Without any hesitation or extra movements, Jun Haoyan directly threw out a punch. With a terrifying fist print in his hand, Jun Haoyan directly turned into a transcendent being. Boom! Under the astonishment of countless people, this punch was as vast and boundless as the collision between stars. The Alkate sacred leader's body was cold, and his face was pale. However, he still made his move in an instant. However, at that moment Jun Haoyan not only had the cultivation of the peak immortal longevity realm, with the help of the 18 Supremacy's great salvation immeasurable relic, but he also had the immortal bell. Even he himself did not know how powerful he had become with the protection of the immortal bell. Rumble! As though the void had exploded, Jun Haoyan's move this time was extremely terrifying. The Alkate sacred leader had the strength of the immortal creator realm, and was extremely powerful. However, in front of Jun Haoyan, who had the infinite bell, he could not withstand a single blow. Pfft! In just an instant, the Alkate sacred leader's body trembled. His true origin energy was directly dissolved by Jun Haoyan's punch. At that moment, the Alkate sacred leader only felt that he was in a vast river, and could be destroyed at any time. His entire body retreated explosively, his chest and shoulders directly exploding, turning into an endless mist of blood. The true origin energy around his body was instantly scattered, and he could not retaliate at all. This scene made countless people's scalps tingle. A lord of a holy land was injured just like that. Just how powerful was the holy son of Haoyan? And this was under the circumstance that he had not awakened the supreme artifact. It was also at this moment that the expressions of Demon King Jiao and the others changed drastically as they retreated slightly. These people were not afraid of Jun Haoyan. In fact, there was nothing in the Langia sacred ground that could make them fearful enough. However, that immortal bell was too terrifying. Even with their strength, they could not resist it. If they did not leave, they were afraid that they would be directly dealt with. With a supreme artifact, they did not have the strength to fight back at all. Just as they were about to leave, a terrifying aura descended. The immortal bell above Jun Haoyan's head rang faintly. As it rumbled continuously, rays of divine light shot out, enveloping the surrounding 10,000 miles of radiance. He used the supreme artifact to seal the void. Does he not want us to escape? Damn it! Does he really want to deal with us one by one? The Green Cloud sacred leader and the All Heaven sacred leader's faces changed drastically. After sensing that the surrounding void had been sealed, they were infuriated. However, it was useless no matter how angry they were. The void had been sealed by the immortal bell. Even with their strength, they could not escape. Let's attack together. Otherwise, we will all die here. At this moment, the Alkate sacred leader shouted. His body was about to explode, and he was covered in blood. He was in an extremely sorry state, and he no longer had the majesty of a sacred leader. However, at this moment Jun Haoyan threw another punch. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled as the true origin energy collapsed. Half of the Alkate sacred leader's body exploded, and he was in a miserable state. He did want to fight back, but he really could not do it. With the protection of the immortal bell, Jun Haoyan was useless no matter what the Alkate sacred leader did. He could not break through the immortal bell's defense. What Jun Haoyan needed to do was to keep attacking. Buzz! In the next moment, the Alkate sacred leader's body recovered. This was the power of an undying realm expert. Other than his head, he could regrow his body. However, doing so would consume his source energy. Once the front part of his source energy was exhausted, he would die. However, the Alkate sacred leader could not care so much now. He could only maintain his peak state. Then, he would join forces with Demon King Jiao and the others. Only then would they be able to resist Jun Haoyan's terrifying attack. This was his last hope. Just as the Alkate sacred leader shouted that sentence, Demon King Jiao and the others reacted. Jun Haoyan would not let a single person off today. They could not escape. Instead of being beaten up, they might as well take the initiative to attack. Thinking of this, the four experts joined forces and activated their strongest power. They took out their most terrifying Dharma treasures to break through Jun Haoyan's defense. However, at this moment, Jun Haoyan ignored them and directly appeared above the Alkate sacred leader's head. He threw out another punch with great force, as if a god had descended. At this moment, the Alcate sacred leader's head exploded. In the blink of an eye, blood rained down. Chapter 206. At that moment, the entire sky seemed to be dyed red. Everyone's gaze was focused in that direction. Alcate's sacred leader was dead? Even some of the sempiternal realm giants trembled when they saw this scene, and their expressions changed drastically. They stared at the scene in the void in disbelief. The Alcate sacred leader had already become famous 1,000 years ago. In that generation, the Alcate sacred leader could definitely be said to be one of the strongest prodigies. In the end, Alcate's sacred leader had won the position of Alcate's sacred leader in front of many competitors. From a famous supreme talent, he had successfully become one of the top figures in the martial god continent. He had an important position. In everyone's eyes, Alcate's sacred leader's life was full of legends. Many people envied him. However, what had happened today had completely ended Alcate's sacred leader's legendary life. A newly ascended prodigy had actually stepped on the head of the Alcate sacred lord and blasted his head apart with a single punch. As everyone knew, when a martial artist's cultivation reached the immortal realm, their lifespan would be more than 10,000 years. If there were no accidents, they would not die. Even if their limbs were chopped off, they could regrow their limbs. When a martial artist reached the immortal realm, no matter which part of his body was damaged, he could recover it. Even if his head was chopped off, he could still continue to live. However, if a martial artist below the immortal realm had his head chopped off, he would definitely die. Only people like the Holy Lord of Langia and Tao Xian, who had reached the immortal realm, could become immortal and regrow their heads. However, everyone knew that although the Alcate Saint Sovereign was very strong, he still hadn't reached the undying realm. He was only at the peak of the immortal realm. Although he was only one step away, this step was like a deep abyss that was difficult to cross. Now, his head had been smashed by Hao Tian's holy son in front of everyone's eyes. This meant that the Alcate sacred leader was going to disappear from this world. Until this moment, no one present had reacted in time. They still could not believe what they had seen. A sacred leader who stood at the peak of the martial god continent, one of the 7 sacred grounds, had been killed just like that. Not to mention the younger generation. Even the old monsters who had lived for thousands of years had never seen such a scene. A Saint Lord had actually been beaten to death by a junior. If word got out, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. In the past, the fall of a sacred lord was definitely the most sensational event on the martial god continent. But today, the peerless battle prowess that Jun Haoyan displayed had completely suppressed this feeling of dread. Everyone felt numb after witnessing Jun Haoyan's terrifying performance. At this moment, Demon King Jiao and the others also stopped running. They looked at the Alcate sacred leader, who had been killed by Jun Haoyan with a single punch. 5 holy lords had besieged the Langia holy grounds, and now, one of them had actually fallen. No one would believe such a result even if they told others about it. In terms of the 5 great factions, the Alcate Sacred Master's faction had suffered heavy losses. I can't run anymore. If I leave my back to him, he will have a chance. If we split up, we will die sooner or later. The Alcate Sacred Leader couldn't even withstand one blow from him. If we continue to split up, I'm afraid I will be next. Everyone, don't hold back. Otherwise, we might not have the chance to display our full strength in the future. Seeing the tragic death of the Alcate Sacred Leader, the Green Cloud Sacred Leader, and the All-Heaven Sacred Leader, who were only at the Immortal Creator realm, were completely flustered. In order to save their lives, they didn't dare to hold back anymore. At this moment, the surrounding void had been sealed by the supreme weapon. All the people they had brought with them were also held back by Tao Xian. Without their obstruction, Tao Xian was at the Immortal Realm, and no one could match up to him. Now that their supreme weapon had run away, they could only rely on themselves. Then, the few of them stopped running and started to team up again. A few extremely powerful forces started to gather together, and their power was overwhelming. After seeing the outcome of the Alcate Sacred Leader, they naturally knew that if they split up, They wouldn't be a match for the holy son of Hao Tian. They would be defeated one by one and killed one by one. However, when Jun Haoyan saw that they had teamed up again, his expression didn't change at all. In fact, there was even a trace of disdain in his pitch-black eyes. The few people in front of him were considered the most powerful people in the martial god continent. At this moment, in order to survive, they were actually teaming up to deal with the junior. Such a scene was inconceivable to everyone. Compared to Tao Xian's unyielding attitude when facing the 5 top experts, the few top experts' behavior was really despicable. However, was it useful for them to team up? Looking at Demon King Jiao and the others, Jun Haoyan couldn't help but sneer. He was determined to kill these people today. It was useless no matter who came. Then Jun Haoyan slowly took a step forward. Various kinds of intense divine light filled his body. It was dazzling and overbearing. He displayed the power of a peerless expert. Holy Lord All Heaven, Holy Lord Azure Cloud, you can't tell right from wrong. You joined forces with Holy Lord Alcade and are accomplices. You should be killed. Looking at Demon King Jiao and the others, Jun Haoyan spoke again like a god, announcing their execution. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was like the ruler of life and death, deciding the fate of these people. In the next moment, Jun Haoyan didn't waste any time. He directly circulated his true origin and attacked them. At this moment, he could only stay in the immortal longevity realm for the time it takes 3 incense sticks to burn. There wasn't much time left, so he had to hurry. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, the entire void began to tremble. Jun Haoyan punched out with the bell of no beginning above his head. The secret of all, the secret of battle, the divine elephant overpowering force, the indestructible divine body, and other terrifying divine abilities and cultivation techniques were all activated at this moment. When Demon King Jiao and the others saw this, they also joined forces completely. Bursts of abstruse and mysterious light burst out from their bodies in an attempt to resist Jun Haoyan's terrifying attack. This move carried the supreme power of Jun Haoyan from the bell of no beginning. Although he didn't carry a lot of it, even a 10,000th of it was enough to suppress Demon King Jiao and the others. Boom! This punch was like a supreme divine power descending into the world, and it seemed like heaven and earth would be shattered. Even though Demon King Jiao and the others' strength had reached the peak of the martial god continent, they couldn't resist this mighty power at all. In the next moment, the 4 of them kept retreating. The weakest of the 4, Holy Lord Azure Cloud, turned pale and trembled. Seeing this, Jun Haoyan's lips curled into a cold smile. Of course, he had to pick on the weak ones. In the next moment, Jun Haoyan moved his mind, and a bunch of freedom wings that contained mysterious power appeared behind Jun Haoyan's back. In a flash, he disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Holy Lord Azure Cloud before Demon King Jiao, and the others could react. I'll take your life while you're down. Without any mercy or fancy moves, Jun Haoyan threw a punch at Holy Lord Azure Cloud's body. Pfft! In just an instant, Holy Lord Azure Cloud's chest exploded, and even his heart was torn apart. However, this level of injury wasn't enough to kill someone of his level. But when he came into close contact with Jun Haoyan's terrifying aura, Holy Lord Azure Cloud felt like an ant. Endless fear filled his heart, and he felt like he was going to die at any moment. Come and save me. Holy Lord Azure Cloud panicked when he thought of Alcade Holy Lord's tragic death. In the next moment, he completely ignored his identity as a Holy Lord and roared at his surroundings. At this moment, Demon King Jiao and the others naturally reacted. When they saw that Holy Lord Azure Cloud was about to die in Jun Haoyan's hands, they immediately attacked without hesitation. If Holy Lord Azure Cloud died, their strength would be weakened by another level. But in the next moment, the entire heaven and earth turned into an icy hell. Even the space seemed to have frozen. Then, Demon King Jiao and the others were shocked to find that the true origin in their bodies couldn't operate normally. Heavenly Heart Frost Arrogance Technique. At this moment, Jun Haoyan directly used this terrifying divine power that came from Jun Moyo. This remarkable ability came from the Divine Realm's Supreme Divine Lady of 4 stars, so its power was naturally extraordinary. In the next moment, Demon King Jiao and the others realized that their speed had become extremely slow. They could only watch as Holy Lord Azure Cloud's body was torn apart by Jun Haotian. In just a breath's time, Holy Lord Azure Cloud's powerful body was completely destroyed by Jun Haotian. Not to mention his head, there wasn't even a speck of flesh left. Only a rain of blood was left in the entire void, as well as Holy Lord Azure Cloud's shrill screams before his death. This scene sent chills down everyone's spines and made their hearts tremble. At this moment, Holy Lord Azure Cloud had died. Today, this was the second Holy Lord that had died in Jun Haotian's hands. At this moment, it was as if heaven and earth had stopped. Everyone was stunned by this scene. However, at this moment, Jun Haotian suddenly turned around and slowly looked at Holy Lord Azure Cloud, who was the weakest among the three remaining people. This gaze was like the gaze of the Grim Reaper, chilling to the bone. When he met Jun Haotian's gaze, Holy Lord Azure Cloud felt as if he was being stared at by an evil spirit. His entire body couldn't stop trembling. In the next moment, his psychological defenses collapsed. He ignored Demon King Jiao and the others, and turned into a stream of light to escape towards the horizon. It was too terrifying. At this moment, Holy Lord Azure Cloud really didn't dare to face Jun Haotian. He had never seen such a terrifying enemy before. However, the collapsed Holy Lord Azure Cloud didn't expect that this world had been completely sealed by the no-beginning bell. Now, with the no-beginning bell in his hand, he was like the master of this space. Unless an Emperor Realm legend appeared, no one would be able to contend against him. Looking at Holy Lord Azure Cloud, who had turned into a stream of light and escaped, Jun Haotian had a mocking look on his face. In the next moment, Jun Haotian took out the sun-shooting divine bow. Jun Haotian's true chi surged as he pulled the sun-shooting divine bow to its maximum. Shua! In the next moment, a golden stream of light pierced through the void and blasted Holy Lord Azure Cloud's body. Boom! Holy Lord Azure Cloud's body exploded as his flesh and blood evaporated. The moment the arrow was shot, the sky changed color. Chapter 2. Cutting weeds and pulling out the roots. At this moment, the world suddenly turned dark. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. A scarlet blood mist drifted between the heavens and the earth, causing one's heart to tremble. Holy Lord Azure Cloud had fallen. In front of everyone's eyes, he was killed by Haotian's Holy Sun with a single arrow. Just like the light-shaking Holy Sun and Holy Lord Azure Cloud, he was killed in front of everyone without any room for resistance. A Holy Lord of his generation had died such a miserable death. Today, this was the third Holy Lord that had fallen in the hands of Haotian's Holy Sun. Thinking of this, everyone's hands and feet turned cold. Originally, they had come here today to see if Langia Holy Land could protect itself under the siege of the five great forces. Would Langia Holy Land obediently hand over Haotian's Holy Sun under the coercion of the five great forces? But the result was beyond everyone's expectations. The defeated side was actually the five great forces that seemed to have the advantage in numbers. Even their strongest Holy Lord was killed by Haotian's Holy Sun in front of everyone. While everyone was sighing, they could not help but look at Haotian's Holy Sun in the sky with fear. Haotian's Holy Sun had killed 3 Holy Lords in a row. This Haotian's Holy Sun was really ruthless and did not leave any room for negotiation. Jun Haotian's actions could be considered as creating an eternal enmity between Langia Holy Land and the other 3 Holy Lands. It could be said that from today onwards, Holy Lord Azure Cloud, Holy Lord Azure Cloud, and Holy Lord Azure Cloud would be enemies with Langia Holy Land for generations to come. Of course, this was nothing to the current Langia Holy Land. In this battle, the 3 Holy Lands had suffered heavy losses. Even their Holy Lord had died in the hands of Haotian's Holy Sun. Compared to the other Holy Lands, the 3 Holy Lands were much weaker. Moreover, even their strongest Holy Lord and their ultimate supreme weapon had been lost. How could the 3 Holy Lands fight against Langia Holy Land in the future? They might not even be able to keep their position as one of the 7 Holy Lands. Moreover, the outcome of this battle had caused a complete upheaval in Eastern Wilderness. From today onwards, the Eastern Wilderness, which had been stable for tens of thousands of years, would undergo earth-shattering changes. After today's battle, The entire martial god continent's martial artists knew that the rise of Langya Holy Land was unstoppable. In this battle, Langya Holy Land could be said to have stepped on the heads of the other three holy lands. They had directly risen to the top and displayed their unparalleled potential. No matter in the face of a great battle, all the disciples of Langya were united as one. They fought together without fear of death. It was also the cold-blooded scene of Hao Tian's holy son fighting against 5 top experts and killing 3 holy lords. All of this showed that in the future, Langya Holy Land would soar into the sky and even surpass the current Kunlun Holy Land. It would be the top holy land of the human race. At this moment, in the void, Jun Haoyan slowly put away the sun-slaying divine bow. After killing 3 holy lords, Jun Haoyan's expression did not change at all. Under everyone's gaze, he slowly turned around and looked at Demon King Jiao and Master of Fairy Fox. Compared to the 3 holy lords, Demon King Jiao and Master of Fairy Fox did not have supreme weapons to protect themselves. However, in terms of individual combat strength, Demon King Jiao and Master of Fairy Fox, who were from the Demon Clan, were much stronger. However, as the 2 supreme experts of the Demon Clan, Demon King Jiao and Master of Fairy Fox's expressions were extremely ugly at this moment. They were still stunned on the spot, looking at the bloody mist in the sky in disbelief. Until now they had yet to react. The joint attack of the 5 of them was actually easily broken by Hao Tian's holy son. With the terrifying strength that Hao Tian's holy son had just displayed, it seemed that no matter how many people there were, it would be useless. With the strength of the 2 of them, they were absolutely no match for him. After a moment of shock, Demon King Jiao and Master of Fairy Fox forced themselves to calm down. Holy son of Hao Tian, 3 holy lords have already died today. You should be satisfied. This matter ends here. We promise that we will never be enemies with you in the future. In the void, Demon King Jiao felt Jun Haoyan's cold gaze and gritted his teeth. His tone was somewhat submissive. When Demon King Jiao said that, everyone present was incomparably shocked. As the most powerful person in the southern border, Demon King Jiao's status had always been incomparably high in the martial god continent. Especially in the southern border, his status was comparable to the most powerful person in the eastern wilderness, Holy Lord Linglong. However, this publicly acknowledged most powerful person in the southern border was actually admitting defeat to Hao Tian's holy son. This undoubtedly made everyone's jaws drop again. Since ancient times, the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon clan had been a large clan among the Demon Clan. Relying on their powerful forces, the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon had always been extremely arrogant and looked down on everyone. It was even more so in front of humans. They did not even care about human prodigies of the same cultivation level. But now, a peerless prodigy of the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon clan actually admitted defeat and begged for mercy in front of Hao Tian's holy son. This was something that had never happened in the history of the Demon Clan. This also indirectly reflected Hao Tian's holy son's strength. That's right, holy son of Hao Tian. The cause of this incident was entirely Alcade Holy Lord and the other 2. The 2 of us were merely participants. Now that the main culprit is dead, I think this matter should end here. After Demon King Jiao finished speaking, the Fairy Fox Monarch also spoke up. Her tone was the same as Demon King Jiao's. After the previous battle, they had completely experienced Jun Haoyan's current strength. With the support of a supreme weapon, the 2 of them were no match for him at all. Instead of being beaten to death by Hao Tian's holy son like Alcade Holy Lord and the others, they would rather take the initiative to admit defeat and save their own lives. Of course, this was only temporary. With the pride of the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon clan and the Green Hill Fox clan, they definitely could not swallow the humiliation today. One had to know that the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon clan and the Green Hill Fox clan's roots were not in the martial god continent, but in the divine demon continent. As long as the 2 of them returned alive today, they would definitely be able to avenge today's humiliation by inviting the masters of their clans from the divine demon continent. In the divine demon continent, the 9-headed Divine Flood Dragon clan and the Green Hill Fox clan both had extremely high status. There were even supreme masters of the Emperor realm in their clans. The Emperor realm was much stronger than the immortal realm cultivators. Masters of this realm were also known as legendary masters. Once an Emperor realm master descended upon the Langya Holy Land, the Langya Holy Land would definitely not be able to stop them. At this moment, Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch had such an idea in their hearts. A wise man submits to circumstances. They would first save their lives today and bring people to massacre the Langya Holy Land in the future. Unfortunately, they would be wasting their efforts. When Jun Haoyan heard the two of them, he laughed mockingly. Haha, let this matter end here? I can't believe you can say that. When you said that you wanted to destroy the entire Langya Holy Land, why didn't you think of letting it go? Instead, you chose to kill everyone? In the next moment, Jun Haoyan raised his voice. His words were like a huge bell, shaking the world. With his shrewdness, how could he not know what these two monster race cultivators were thinking in their hearts? Mere monster race cultivators with well-developed limbs dared to play tricks in front of him. They were simply courting death. If he spared these two guys this time, it would definitely be like letting a tiger return to the mountain. Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch came from the monster race, which was different from the three holy lands. Their roots were in the distant divine demon continent. After a cultivator's cultivation reached the immortal realm, they could cross the boundary of the world and reach other continents. But basically, there was a long distance between each continent, and no one could easily cross it. However, if these two monster race cultivators were allowed to go and get reinforcements, they might really provoke the arrival of a powerful master. This was something that Jun Haoyan did not want to see. After this battle, the Langya Holy Land needed to recuperate and was not ready to fight again. Therefore, Jun Haoyan still looked at Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch coldly and said slowly, "Today, neither of you can escape." As he spoke, Jun Haoyan once again showed the world his unparalleled dominance. Even in the face of the monster race cultivators who had already surrendered, he was still unmoved and did not take a step back. In Jun Haoyan's heart, only by killing these two monster race cultivators could he ensure the stability of the Langya Holy Land for a while. You, holy son of Hao Tian, you have to think carefully. Whether it is the nine-headed divine dragon clan or the Green Hill Fox clan, we are all big clans in the divine demon continent. If you insist on killing us, you will have to bear the endless anger of the monster race behind us. By then, the Langya Holy Land will not be able to bear it. Holy son of Hao Tian, please think twice before you act. Don't become the eternal sinner of the Langya Holy Land. Seeing that the holy son of Hao Tian was stubborn and showed no signs of backing down, Demon King Jiao could not help but be furious. As a member of the noble nine-headed divine dragon clan, he had already humbled himself and admitted defeat, but the holy son of Hao Tian still refused to give up. He was really going too far. However, he had never thought that if the Langya Holy Land was in danger of being destroyed at this moment, would they show mercy? Cut the weeds and dig up the roots. This was the first rule of a cultivator. This was how the world worked. When you had great power, but did not eliminate the future troubles, the one who would be destroyed in the future was very likely to be yourself. What Jun Haoyan wanted to do at this moment was to cut the weeds and dig up the roots. If Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch did not die, there would be endless trouble in the future. Because behind them stood the Divine Demon Continent, a world ranked in the top 20 of the 3,000 worlds. In the Divine Demon Continent, there were not only legendary existences of the Emperor Realm, but also Saint King Realm Masters. As such, Jun Haoyan would not let Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch leave alive today. It's useless to say more. When you attacked the Langya Holy Land, today's result was destined. Looking at Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch, Jun Haoyan said ruthlessly. In the next moment, Jun Haoyan made his move decisively. He had to get rid of these two monster race giants before the power of the Saraira disappeared. With the support of the Without Beginning Bell, he had reached his strongest state at this moment. Demon King Jiao's immortal and undying realm cultivation was nothing in his eyes. The wings behind Jun Haoyan spread out as divine light shone from his body. His killing intent was overwhelming. He's going too far. Fairy Fox Monarch, let's fight it out with him. I don't believe he can maintain his current strength forever. Seeing this scene, Demon King Jiao and the Fairy Fox Monarch looked at each other and had no choice but to attack in anger. They did not believe that Jun Haoyan's strength was endless. Relying on external power, sooner or later, there will be a moment when it will be used up. Boom! Then, the three of them collided and burst out a vast brilliance that was even more dazzling than the sun. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them and was shocked to the point of numbness. They did not know what to say. In the distance, Guyuahuang helplessly shook her head when she saw this scene. This guy, no matter when and who he faced, was always so strong. As for the people of the Langya Holy Land, they looked at the scene in front of them with incomparable nervousness. They knew that as long as the Holy Sun defeated the two giants of the monster race, the Holy Land would be safe. Not only would the Langya Holy Land solve the current crisis, but its reputation would also rise to a new level. At this time, in the hearts of all the disciples and elders of the Langya Holy Land, Jun Haoyan's position had surpassed everything. He was the only Holy Lord in the future. The void trembled, the heaven and earth shook, and endless divine light shone. The final battle was coming, and everyone was paying attention. However, some of the experts had already guessed the result. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. At this moment, with such terrifying strength and the protection of a supreme weapon, how could the Holy Son of Haoyan be defeated? Even if Demon King Jiao had the unparalleled strength of the immortal realm, he was definitely not a match for the Holy Son of Haoyan. This was the thought in the minds of the experts in the Langya Holy Land, who were watching from the outside. In their opinion, the key to this battle was when the Holy Son of Haoyan's strength would run out. Naturally, they also knew that the Holy Son of Haoyan was able to possess such terrifying strength with the help of an external object. Relying on the power of external objects sooner or later would be exhausted. In this battle, Demon King Jiao only had one way to fight. That was to stall for time. As long as he could hold on until the Holy Son of Haoyan's strength ran out, he would have a chance. At that time, even if he could not kill the Holy Son of Haoyan, who had a supreme weapon, he could still escape unscathed. Without the power of external forces, the Holy Son of Haoyan's strength would return to the second layer of the Transcendence realm. With that kind of strength, he would not be able to use a supreme weapon for a long time. It had to be said that the power of the supreme weapon in Jun Haoyan's hands was too strong. Demon King Jiao almost could not muster up the courage to fight. This kind of power could only be suppressed by an Emperor Realm Master, who also had a supreme weapon. Supreme weapons were also divided into different grades, and the one in Jun Haoyan's hands was definitely the top grade. At this moment, the Holy Son of Haoyan, Jun Haoyan, stood in the void condescendingly. Above his head, the without beginning bell continued to cast down tens of thousands of rays of light, each of which was extremely dazzling. These multicolored lights automatically revolved around Jun Haoyan, protecting his body so that he would not be harmed in the slightest. In the void, a vast amount of true chi burst out from his body. As giants of the monster race, Demon King Jiao and Heavenly Fox King were not to be trifled with. Compared to Alcade Holy Master and the other two Holy Masters, Demon King Jiao and Heavenly Fox King were naturally much stronger. With the powerful physique of the monster race, very few human race cultivators of the same realm could suppress them. But now, even with the two giants of the monster race joining forces, they could not shake Jun Haoyan at all. This is not good. The supreme weapon on this brat's body is like a tortoise shell. What should we do, King Jiao? Heavenly Fox King frowned when he saw that he could not shake Jun Haoyan at all after using his full strength to launch a shocking attack. Under the protection of the supreme weapon, Heavenly Fox King's supreme divine ability was like a stone sinking into the sea, unable to cause any threat at all. It was like punching cotton. Heavenly Fox King had never encountered such a frustrating battle before. If it were any other time, even if the Holy Son of Haoyan had the cultivation of the immortal 10,000 longevity realm, he would not take him seriously. But now, with the supreme weapon in hand, the holy son of Haotian had rendered him helpless. Don't fight him head-on. Fight him and stall for time. Hearing this, Demon King Jiao frowned slightly. He knew Heavenly Fox King's difficulties. But even with his cultivation of the immortal 10,000 longevity realm, he could not shake the holy son of Haotian at all. In front of the holy son of Haotian, he could only be beaten up passively. This was the power of the supreme weapon. No matter who it was, as long as they could activate the supreme weapon, they could break the balance. It was also because of the supreme weapon that the holy lands and empires could be immortal for countless years. And Jun Haotian took full advantage of this. What he wanted was to use the supreme weapon to protect himself. This was because he knew very well that even with the help of the 18 Venerables' great salvation immeasurable relic, it would be difficult for him to kill Demon King Jiao. Therefore, Jun Haotian used the without beginning bell to protect himself and completely ignore the opponent's attack. This could save him a lot of trouble. Boom! In an instant, thousands of golden scales around Demon King Jiao's body trembled and burst out with endless light, as if they were going to pierce through his eyes. Trying to stall for time? Realizing the purpose of the two, Jun Haotian laughed. He naturally knew what Demon King Jiao was planning. As long as the power in his body dissipated, it would be difficult for him to activate the supreme weapon with his cultivation of the Transcendence realm. At that time, the surrounding space that had been sealed by the supreme weapon would become weak. They could then use their power to break the seal and escape. Unfortunately, Jun Haotian would not give them the chance at all. In the next moment, a pair of pure white divine wings of freedom appeared on his back once again. Jun Haotian used the same trick again. In an instant, he turned into a stream of light and directly appeared in front of Heavenly Fox King. At this moment, Jun Haotian did not hold back at all. He directly activated all the vital essence in his body and even mobilized the power of the immortal bell to enhance his fist. At this moment, Jun Haotian seemed to have turned into the god of war again as he punched out. Each punch could tear apart thousands of miles of mountains and rivers and shatter meteorites. It was extremely terrifying. Faced with this sudden attack, Heavenly Fox King could not resist at all. In just an instant, Jun Haotian threw out countless punches, all landing on Heavenly Fox King's body. Even though Heavenly Fox King was from the demon clan and had an unparalleled physical body, under Jun Haotian's terrifying fist prints, it was impossible for him to resist. Even Heavenly Fox King's defense had reached its limit. His shoulder directly exploded, and a bloody mist appeared in the sky. When Demon King Jiao saw this scene, his expression changed drastically. He immediately swooped over and continuously activated his terrifying divine ability. However, at this moment, Jun Haotian did not resist at all. He grabbed Heavenly Fox King and kept punching. Puff, puff, puff. In the end, Heavenly Fox King's body completely exploded, leaving only his head to escape. He was not in the immortal realm yet. If his head was destroyed, he would die. It was also at this moment that Jun Haotian channeled all his strength and stepped on Heavenly Fox King's head. Puffed. In the next moment, Heavenly Fox King's head directly exploded, and he died. 4 of the supreme powerhouses of the 5 major forces were killed instantly. Ah, Holy Son of Haotian, I want you dead. Seeing the tragic death of Heavenly Fox King, Demon King Jiao was furious. His entire body suddenly burst out with golden divine light. In the next moment, a 4-headed divine dragon that was more than 100,000 feet long appeared, covering the sky and the sun. It looked down at the sky, and its demonic aura almost broke through the imprisonment of the supreme weapon. Fortunately, Jun Haotian immediately made a move at the critical moment, which stabilized the situation. However, at this moment, Demon King Jiao's demonic body also collided with his body. Dong! Jun Haotian's expression changed. His internal organs were actually trembling. Demon King Jiao's attack just now almost broke through his defense. This was already a move that was close to the level of an Emperor Realm powerhouse. Countless people watched the scene in front of them with their hearts in turmoil. At the same time, it was also at this moment that Jun Haotian shrunk the immortal bell and completely let go of its defense. Demon King Jiao obviously saw this scene, and immediately swooped down again. This time he wanted to kill Jun Haotian. However, Jun Haotian was fearless. He used the last of his strength to communicate with the immortal bell again. In an instant the bell rang again. This time, Demon King Jiao no longer had the protection of his supreme weapon. Dong! The sound of the immortal bell shook the heavens. An incomparably vast and majestic aura directly descended on Demon King Jiao's body. At this moment, cracks began to appear on his demonic body. This was an attack that belonged to the supreme weapon, and it was also Jun Haotian's final attack. It surpassed all the previous attacks, and completely shattered everything about Demon King Jiao. Pfft! At this moment, in the eyes of countless people, the heavenly dragon directly shattered, and even Demon King Jiao's primordial spirit turned into nothingness. Chapter 207. A scarlet rain of blood fell from the void, dyeing the entire world red. Everyone looked up at the sky. Their faces turned pale when they saw this scene. At this moment, there was no one left alive in the sky. The three holy lords of the eastern wilderness and the demon clan had all disappeared. Even Demon King Jiao, who was the most powerful among them, had been reduced to the point where his primordial spirit had been reduced to ashes. The blood rain and golden scales that were falling from the sky were proof that he had once existed in this world. At the end of the sky, Jun Haotian stood alone. He looked down at the countless people below him, displaying his peerless strength and dominance. At this moment, he was like a supreme emperor, who could suppress the world and sweep away all the supreme existences who despised imperial power. After this battle, regardless of whether it was the younger generation or those who had been famous for a long time, they all held Jun Haotian in awe. In this world, unparalleled strength was the only way to intimidate everyone. And in this battle, Jun Haotian had displayed his strength to the world. At this moment, he had already killed several of the most powerful cultivators of the 5 major forces. At this moment, the people who were left were just a bunch of mobs. Even the supreme weapon had fled in fear. What could these people do? At this moment, Jun Haotian also slowly turned his gaze to the lucky survivors. Buzz! Feeling Jun Haotian's gaze, the people of the 5 major forces suddenly felt their scalps go numb. It was as if they were being stared at by an extremely ferocious demon. At this moment, they were extremely fearful of Jun Haotian. They were afraid that Jun Haotian would kill them if they did not agree with him. After all, the holy son of Haotian had mercilessly killed even the holy lords. Moreover, the elders and disciples of the various factions were probably like ants in the eyes of the holy son of Haotian. In the face of such a powerful Jun Haotian, they did not dare to resist. Even their leader, the Holy Lord, had died. What kind of storm could they stir up? Thinking of this, the remaining members of the 5 major forces could only lower their heads under Jun Haotian's gaze and await Jun Haotian's execution. However, Jun Haotian looked at them without any change in his expression. As usual, he was as calm as an ancient well. Killing 5 Holy Lord-level existences in succession didn't seem to affect him in the slightest. It was as if he had done something extremely strange. Holy Son of Haotian, we hope that Lord Holy Sun can show mercy and spare our lives. Under Jun Haotian's domineering gaze, one of the supreme elders of the Green Cloud Holy Ground could not help but speak up. At this moment, he did not have the bearing of a Holy Land elder at all. His attitude was extremely humble, and even his voice was trembling slightly. In the face of death, how many people could maintain a calm state of mind? With the current strength of the Langya Holy Land, they could easily wipe out the remaining 5 forces in one fell swoop. Everyone at the scene believed that the Holy Son of Haotian, who had a supreme weapon, definitely had the strength to do so. However, when Jun Haotian heard the Supreme Elder's words, he smiled faintly. The main culprit has been executed. As for how to deal with you, I, the Holy Sun, have no say in it. After saying this, Jun Haotian looked at Tao Xian, who was at the side. After all, Tao Xian was the true leader of the Langya Holy Land. When Tao Xian heard Jun Haotian's words, he looked at him in surprise. Then, he understood what Jun Haotian meant. In this battle, The Langya Holy Land had displayed unparalleled strength that was enough to shock the entire eastern wilderness. However, Tao Xian knew that this was just on the surface. The Langya Holy Land was only strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. Jun Haoyan's strength, which had been enhanced by external items, would soon disappear. At that time, he would not be as powerful as he was now. Moreover, although the supreme weapons of the three holy lands had fled in fear, they had spirits. Sooner or later, they would take the initiative to return to the Holy Land. A holy land with a supreme weapon would be very difficult to deal with. It would be even more difficult for the Langya Holy Land to deal with the two demon clans in the southern region. Although these forces no longer had their strongest cultivators, they still had their hidden trump cards. Moreover, everyone in the Langya Holy Land was injured to varying degrees. If they rashly continued to fight, it would backfire and put everyone in the eastern wilderness in danger. Of course, the most important point was that other than Jun Haoyan, no one else could control the fairy bell. Thinking of this, Tao Xian nodded slightly and looked at the people from the five forces. You wanted to destroy the Langya Holy Land. It is impossible not to pursue this matter. Although the main culprit has been punished, this matter is not over yet. The Langya Holy Land will definitely issue a verdict to the five forces in the future, but not now. You can go back and wait. Tao Xian actually allowed the people from the five forces to go back first. However, he did not say that he would not pursue this matter. He just had not thought it through yet. Especially for the three holy lands, their roots were in the eastern wilderness. Even if they wanted to escape, where could they go? As for the southern region demon clans, they did not care at all. Whether it was the nine-headed serpent dragon or the nine-tailed fox king, their roots were in the divine demon continent. Now that the two strongest were dead, the remaining ones could not do anything at all. To kill them, or not to kill them, was just a matter of thought. Moreover, Tao Xian's decision represented another layer of meaning. He wanted the five forces to go back, although he had not announced what the punishment would be. However, in reality, everyone knew that if they were allowed to go back, they would not be eradicated. It could be said that to a certain extent, it reduced the panic in their hearts and calmed them down. Thank you, the Holy Lord of Langya. Thank you, the Holy Son of Haoyan. Thank you, the Holy Lord of Langya. Thank you, the Holy Son of Haoyan. After hearing Tao Xian's words, the people from the five forces were overjoyed. Some of the primordial soul Dharma powerhouses even wanted to kneel down on the spot. To them this was a chance at life. How could they not be excited? After thanking Tao Xian and Jun Haoyan, they hurriedly left without looking back. As for the corpses of the three holy lords and the two demon overlords, no one cared about them. No matter how strong you were when you were alive, and how many countries came to congratulate you, as long as you were dead, there would be nothing left. A person's death was like an extinguished lamp. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, it was extremely true. Jun Haoyan looked at the scene in front of him and did not feel anything. This was because many people had died at his hands. It was not the first time he had seen this. At this moment, Tao Xian appeared beside him. The latter seemed to have sensed something and immediately looked in another direction. It was where the other forces were watching the battle. All the people from the major forces were trembling in fear. Some of them even tensed up. They were really afraid. They were afraid that the Holy Son of Haoyan would not be enough after clearing out the five forces. He even wanted to target them. The Holy Son of Haoyan now was truly unstoppable. Translator, Nyebo Studio Editor. Nyebo Studio. At this moment, everyone's heart was extremely complicated. This was especially so for those who did not think highly of the holy ground of Langya. It was not that they did not have a shadow behind the five forces. It was just that they did not officially participate. Now, the Holy Son of Haoyan's gaze seemed to have seen through everything. It made people feel a little guilty. However, for the other forces who did not participate in this matter, they were not very afraid. Even so, because of Jun Haoyan, they could not help but be surprised. Jun Haoyan's performance was too terrifying. He was almost invincible. No one present was a match for him. Without the Holy Son of Haoyan's permission, no one present dared to leave. It would be over if they were targeted by the Holy Son of Haotian. Some people even sighed at this time. Because of the rise of the Holy Son of Haotian, the Langya Holy Ground seemed to have reached another peak. The most important thing was that the Holy Son of Haotian had not yet become a great person. If he really grew up in the future, how powerful would he be? As for whether the Holy Son of Haotian would die halfway, almost no one thought so. After all, the Holy Son of Haotian had a supreme weapon in his hands. With that invincible supreme weapon protecting him, there was probably no one in the entire Wushan continent who could threaten his life. Therefore, when Jun Haotian looked over, everyone no longer looked at him as a young genius like before. Instead, they looked at him as a true powerhouse who placed Jun Haotian on the same level as himself, or even an even higher status. Everyone. At this time, Jun Haotian opened his mouth and attracted everyone's attention once again. His purple robe fluttered in the wind, and there was not a speck of dust on it. He stood tall and straight like an emperor, not like someone who had experienced a great battle. At this moment, he was like the most eye-catching person in the world, the true protagonist of the world. In a month, the Langya Holy Ground will be holding a grand event. I hope that everyone can come. Once this was said, everyone present was stunned. What did the Langya Holy Ground mean by holding a grand event? Everyone was deep in thought, trying to figure out the meaning of this sentence. When the Jade Lake Sacred Leader heard this, a smile appeared on her face. She then spoke slowly. All right, the Linglong Holy Ground will definitely pay a visit. After seeing the Linglong Sacred Leader's attitude, everyone did not hesitate. They all said that they would pay a visit in a month's time and bring gifts. After the Linglong Sacred Leader's words, most of the people present understood the meaning of Jun Haotian's words. The Langya Holy Ground was holding a grand event to tell the entire Wushan continent. After the great battle, the Langya Holy Ground was completely different from before. Even the alliance of the 5 forces had failed. They were completely defeated by the Langya Holy Ground. At this moment, the Langya Holy Ground had surpassed the past and reached a new peak. Because of the Holy Son of Haotian and the invincible supreme weapon in his hands, the Langya Holy Ground had reached the peak again. It might be the most powerful force after the Kunlun Holy Ground. Moreover, the Langya Holy Ground had also revealed another point. The Langya Holy Ground could let bygones be bygones for those who came to attend the grand event. They could even rely on the Holy Ground. One had to know that Jun Haotian had just defeated the 5 experts. That was an earth-shattering power. No one dared to go against the Langya Holy Ground at this moment. Everyone knew that this grand event was not as simple as a gathering. It was also a show to the other forces that the Langya Holy Ground was no longer a force that could be easily bullied. It was like a newly established dynasty that had to receive tributes from foreign countries and the 9 states to congratulate them. It was a flourishing time. The Langya Holy Ground needed a chance like this to influence the entire Wushan continent once again. And all of this was because of one name, Haotian Holy Son. After everyone understood this, they all declared that they would attend the grand event. At that time, the power of the Langya Holy Ground would be displayed. Gu Yuehuang stood beside the Jade Lake Sacred Leader. She was in a daze. One had to know that the Holy Son of Jiang Haotian was only competing with the younger generation a few months ago. How long had it been since then? Was this the true meaning of a prodigy? Compared to the Holy Son of Jiang Haotian, she was indeed much weaker. Yuehuang, if you have the chance in the future, interact more with the Holy Son of Jiang Haotian. At this moment, the Jade Lake Sacred Leader's voice appeared in Gu Yuehuang's mind. Gu Yuehuang was slightly surprised. She didn't quite understand. In the future, this person might be on the same level as the Linglong Sacred Leader. When she heard this, Gu Yuehuang was completely stunned. She couldn't believe it. One had to know that although the Jade Lake Sacred Leader didn't compete with the other forces, she was actually very powerful. A female Sacred Leader was only second to the Linglong Sacred Leader in terms of reputation. She had extremely high standards. And now, the Jade Lake Sacred Leader was comparing the Holy Son of Jiang Haotian to the Linglong Sacred Leader. This evaluation was extremely shocking. The Linglong Sacred Leader had become famous 3,000 years ago. She was known as the most powerful prodigy in the past 50,000 years. Even the top prodigy of the eastern wilderness 30,000 years ago, Baiming Han, the holy son of Langia, couldn't compare to her. This was also recognized by the entire Wushan continent. No one would deny the Linglong sacred leader's power. In the Jade Lake sacred leader's eyes, the holy son of Jiang Haotian was the next Linglong sacred leader. Perhaps, he was the only holy son of Jiang Haotian. Is he really that powerful? Guiyue Huang was deep in thought. She originally thought that the gap between her and the holy son of Jiang Haotian was only a little bit. Now, it seemed like the gap between heaven and earth was insurmountable. Let's go. It's time for us to go back. Let's see how the Langia sacred ground will be in a month's time, the Jade Lake sacred leader said again. She sighed in her heart. It had been a long time since she had seen such an outstanding young man, like the holy son of Jiang Haotian. After the Jade Lake sacred leader left, everyone around the Langia sacred ground prepared to leave. Everyone bowed slightly to Tao Xian and Jun Haotian as a sign of respect. Then they turned into flowing light and disappeared. All kinds of auras dissipated between heaven and earth. After the period it took an incense stick to burn, the entire place fell silent once again, and the Langia sacred ground returned to its original state. Boom! At that moment, all kinds of divine light appeared around Jun Haotian. The 18 Buddhist Bantis behind him all disappeared. A Sarira appeared in his body. The 18 Buddhist Bantis engraved on it also disappeared. This meant that the small Thunder Temple's treasure had temporarily lost its effect. And Jun Haotian returned to the second level of the primordial soul Dharma power. Although Jun Haotian yearned for the power of the fifth level of the immortal realm, he knew what his true cultivation level was. Moreover, he was very confident. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he broke through to the immortal realm and became a powerful figure. Chapter 208. Jun Haotian had only used a little more than a year to cultivate from a small martial artist in the Qi condensation realm to a powerful martial artist in the transcendence realm. This speed could be said to be unprecedented. In the previous battle, because of the relic, he had experienced the feeling of an immortal realm martial artist in advance. That feeling made him very confident that he would not be able to reach that realm soon. In the 3,000 worlds, any martial artist whose cultivation had reached the immortal realm, they were all known as eternal giants. This was because after reaching the immortal realm, a martial artist's lifespan could be extended to more than 10,000 years. Anyone who reached the immortal realm's 5 realms could be called an immortal giant. This was an existence that had completely broken away from the boundaries of mortals and was not human. The level of one's life had increased by a level. At this moment, the relic's effect had already disappeared, and Jun Haotian's strength had already recovered to the second level of the transcendence realm. After losing that power, Jun Haotian did not feel any reluctance. From the beginning to the end, Jun Haotian had clearly warned himself that this power was only borrowed for a while and did not belong to him at all. He did not lose himself in this external power. Naturally, Tao Xian also felt the change in Jun Haotian's aura. He knew that this was probably the end of that external power's time. However, after Jun Haotian's immortal realm aura disappeared, Jun Haotian's aura instantly returned to the second level of the transcendence realm. When he saw Jun Haotian's true cultivation, Tao Xian was stunned again. Thinking of Jun Haotian's cultivation speed, Tao Xian could not help but sigh in his heart. Such a terrifying cultivation speed would probably shock the entire continent. Back then, when I made you great heaven's holy son, this was the wisest decision of my life. At this moment, Tao Xian looked at Jun Haotian with a gratified smile on his face. The holy son of Haotian was like a god descending from the heavens in this battle that threatened to wipe out a sect. His aura suppressed the entire area, and he killed 5 holy lords in succession. His unparalleled elegance had completely stolen the limelight from the holy lord of Langia and Tao Xian. But regarding this, Dao Yin did not have a trace of dissatisfaction in his heart. Because Haotian Holy Son's performance was even more outstanding, it proved how good Tao Xian's judgment was. You flatter me, Holy Lord. I'm just doing what I should do as the holy son of Langya." Hearing this, Jun Haoyan was neither arrogant nor impatient. This time, the Langya sacred ground did not want to call him out even at the risk of having their sect destroyed. Jun Haoyan naturally took note of this friendship and remembered it in his heart. If others respect me, I will respect them tenfold. The Holy Lord of Langya treated him with sincerity. He, Jun Haoyan, was naturally not an ungrateful person. Hearing Jun Haoyan's words, Tao Xian smiled with satisfaction. With Jun Haoyan's attitude in this battle, it would not be long before the Langya sacred ground, led by Jun Haoyan, took another step towards greater glory. Then, Jun Haoyan and Tao Xian slowly turned around and looked at the Langya sacred ground disciples behind them. When they saw Jun Haoyan's gaze, all the Langya sacred ground disciples, including the elders and the various temple masters, bowed to Jun Haoyan. "Greetings, Holy Son! Greetings, Holy Son! Greetings, Holy Son!" Countless people spoke in unison like a tsunami. Everyone was very, very pious. At this moment, Jun Haoyan's status in the Langya sacred ground had reached the highest point. In terms of popularity, he was not inferior to the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian. He might even surpass them. This was a symbol of spirituality. Even if Jun Haoyan announced in public that he would take over the position of the sacred leader, perhaps no one would choose to reject him. Unparalleled strength was the only standard in this world. Although Jun Haoyan's strength had not reached the immortal realm, but they firmly believed that with the Holy Son's talent, it was only a matter of time before he became an eternal giant. When Jun Haoyan heard their words, he smiled and gestured for everyone to stand up. Now the crisis in the Langya sacred ground had been completely resolved. Then Jun Haoyan, Tao Xian, and the elders and temple masters of the Langya sacred ground walked toward the interior of the Langya sacred ground. The results of this battle would soon spread throughout the entire Wushan continent, and even to other continents. And the Langya sacred ground was going to organize the Langya sacred ground grand event, which would cause the Langya sacred ground to be despised by everyone again. And because of what had happened today, the Langya sacred ground had an unprecedentedly strong cohesion. Now what the Langya sacred ground needed to do was to completely stand at the top. Divine Monster Continent, Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan. There was a demonic aura here, and Haoyan's vitality was vibrating. It was extremely terrifying. Tens of thousands of black sacred mountains joined together, looking as if there was no end to them. And on top of these black mountains, there was a temple covered in golden divine light. It was 9 floors tall. Countless rays of light hung down from it, looking sacred and majestic. The place in front of them was one of the strongest forces in the Divine Monster Continent. The temple floating in the void was called the Nine Heavens Temple, and it was the headquarters of the Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan in the Divine Monster Continent. In the Nine Heavens Temple, every floor was occupied by members of the Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan. Every one of them was extremely powerful. At that moment, a golden ray of light suddenly appeared, shuttling back and forth among the tens of thousands of black sacred mountains. Not long after, the golden ray of light rushed to the highest floor of the temple. This was a majestic hall, and it was engraved with all kinds of ancient and complex characters of the demon clan. The hall was tens of thousands of feet tall, and it shot straight into the void. Stars revolved around it, and endless starlight hung down. And above the hall, a statue of the Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan stood, soaring in the 9 heavens, and it was extremely powerful. Even an undying realm expert would be suppressed with a single glance. Legend had it that the Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan's ancestor had personally carved it, and the ancestor of the Nine-Headed Divine Dragon Clan was also a supreme existence, and that golden ray of light directly bypassed this place and rushed to the front of the hall. Then, the golden light dissipated, and a middle-aged man walked out. He looked very majestic, and he actually had some similarities to Demon King Jiao. In particular, the aura that he exuded was extremely majestic, and he had reached the peak of the undying realm. But such an existence actually knelt down in the hall and kowtowed. "Greetings to the ancestor. I have something to report." His voice was very loud, and he was very respectful, because the person he was about to meet was the strongest ancestor of the nine-headed divine dragon clan. He was an ancient existence known as one of the top 10 experts in the divine monster continent, and he was extremely terrifying. Enter. It was also at this moment that an old voice sounded in the hall, as if it could penetrate layers of space and reach the heavens. The middle-aged man immediately kowtowed again, and then pushed the door open and entered. The hall was very large and spacious, and people standing here were like ants. The pillars in the hall were like stone pillars that supported the sky, and they were indomitable. And at the end of the hall, there was an ancestor who was dozens of meters tall sitting upright. His golden eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. The majesty that exuded from his body could even make the entire world tremble. Speak. The giant-like ancestor spoke again. His eyes were like the sun, looking down on everything. Even the middle-aged man who had reached the half-step emperor realm seemed to be unable to bear it. The middle-aged man knelt down again and prostrated himself on the ground. Ancestor, Ao Liang was killed in the martial god continent. Ao Liang was the real name of Demon King Jiao. And just as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the ancestor who was sitting on the throne stood up directly. For a moment, the entire Nine Heavens temple shook, as if a natural disaster had descended. Chapter 2. Heaven's 5 decrements. A vast majesty suppressed everything, as if the wrath of the heavens had descended. At this moment, the entire Nine Heavens temple was constantly shaking, and all kinds of lightning fell from the void. Seeing this scene, all the clansmen of the nine-headed divine dragon clan were shocked, and in the next moment, they directly knelt on the ground. This terrifying and peerless pressure was like a heavenly tribulation, causing their faces to turn pale, and their bodies to tremble. A moment later, all the clansmen of the nine-headed divine dragon clan flew out of Nine Heavens temple. They knelt down in the void, begging for mercy from the nine-headed divine dragon clan's ancestor. What's going on? Why did the ancestor suddenly get angry? The ancestor has been in seclusion for thousands of years. What exactly happened to make him so angry? What is it? This is the first time I've seen the ancestor get angry in thousands of years. All the clansmen of the nine-headed divine dragon clan knelt down and shouted in their hearts in confusion. The nine-headed divine dragon clan was one of the great clans of the heavenly monster continent. Once the ancestor got angry, the entire continent would naturally be shaken. No one could withstand the ancestor's anger. At this moment, in the highest hall of Nine Heavens temple, the ancestor of the nine-headed divine dragon clan looked down at the middle-aged man below, his eyes filled with boundless anger. Speak, what's going on? As the ancestor of the nine-headed divine dragon clan, he was also one of the 10 great masters of the heavenly monster continent. He had been like this for tens of thousands of years. He always carried the pressure of a master. The heavenly monster continent was ranked in the top 20 of the 3,000 worlds. As one of the 10 great masters of the heavenly monster continent, his strength had reached the legendary emperor realm. In the heavenly monster continent, he was known as the nine-headed emperor. He was an emperor realm master, stronger than ordinary emperors. When an emperor got angry, it was true that mountains and rivers would collapse and mulberry fields would turn into oceans. Ao Liang, also known as Demon King Jiao, was one of the favorite descendants of the nine-headed divine dragon clan's ancestor. As the ancestor of the nine-headed divine dragon clan, he had countless descendants and thousands of direct descendants. However, Demon King Jiao was the most favored descendant of the nine-headed emperor. He had always valued this descendant of Demon King Jiao very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent him to the martial god continent. In ancient times, the martial god continent was ranked much higher than the heavenly monster continent. Although the martial god continent had declined now, there must still be many big secrets hidden in it, which was also coveted by many worlds. Now Demon King Jiao, the most favored descendant of the nine-headed emperor, was killed. How could he not be furious? Below, the middle-aged man felt the terrifying pressure emanating from the nine-headed emperor, and his body trembled. He then told the emperor everything he had learned from the martial god continent. Liang died at the hands of Langya, holy land of the martial god continent. After hearing the middle-aged man's words, the nine-headed emperor suddenly frowned. Today Langya Holy Land was only a small holy land of the human race. However, more than 100,000 years ago, the Lord of Langya was a famous figure in the 3,000 worlds. In the end, he was an existence that ascended to the god realm. Even the nine-headed emperor was a little afraid of such an existence. After all, he was a real existence. Even after so many years, the Supreme's remaining power was still there. Yes, it is said that he joined forces with Yin of the Green Hill Fox clan to destroy the Langya Holy Land. In the end they were killed instead. The middle-aged man spoke again. He did not know who exactly killed the nine-headed divine dragon, so he could only say so. Yin was the fairy fox monarch. The Green Hill Fox clan and the nine-headed divine dragon clan had been on good terms for generations. When they joined forces, they were one of the two great clans that should not be provoked in the heavenly monster continent. Does the Green Hill Fox clan know about this? The nine-headed emperor asked again. He was also a little cautious when it came to the inheritance of the Lord of Langya. Although the Lord of Langya had ascended more than 100,000 years ago, his remaining power was still there. They already know, and the nine-tailed emperor's intentions are clear. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. He had already received the news before this. In that case we, the nine-headed divine dragon clan, cannot back down. The nine-headed sovereign opened his mouth. His golden eyes shone with golden light, making him look extremely terrifying. If the nine-headed divine dragon clan and the Green Hill Fox clan join forces, it would be very easy for them to destroy a human holy land that only had one supreme artifact. Then what does the old ancestor mean? The middle-aged man spoke and asked immediately. He was Ao Liang's elder brother, and the clan leader of the nine-headed divine dragon clan. But in fact, all the decisions of the nine-headed divine dragon clan had to be made by the nine-headed divine dragon old ancestor. Of course we must take revenge, but the time is not yet right. The nine-headed emperor said again. He would take revenge, but he did not act immediately. Hearing this, the clan leader of the nine-headed divine dragon clan frowned slightly. He knew that his old ancestor had always been extremely protective. In the heavenly monster continent, he was even more infamous and terrifying. Now that his favorite descendant had been killed, why did he not want to take revenge immediately? The nine-headed sovereign seemed to have seen through his thoughts and sat back down on his throne. The martial god continent is supported by many supreme marks. It is easy to leave, but very difficult to enter. It is almost impossible for existences above the emperor realm to descend. However, this emperor has already calculated that in less than 3 to 5 months, there will definitely be a change in the martial god continent, and the 5 decay of heaven and man will descend again. As soon as this was said, the clan leader of the nine-headed divine dragon clan trembled violently. The 5 decay of heaven and man was one of the most terrifying tribulations in the 3,000 worlds. Any world that could give birth to the 5 decay of heaven and man was ranked in the top 10 at the beginning of the world's existence. The martial god continent used to be ranked in the top 10 of the 3,000 worlds, so there would be a great tribulation every once in a while. However, this tribulation did not mean the destruction of the world. Instead, it meant rebirth and transformation. If the tribulation was successfully passed, then the great world would be shrouded in a supreme aura and blessed by the god realm. Then, many terrifying powerhouses would be born in a short period of time, and their ranking in the 3,000 worlds would rise rapidly. However, if they failed to pass the tribulation, they would continue to weaken. The martial god continent, which used to be ranked in the top 10 during ancient times, had been weakened to this day because it failed to pass the 5 decay of heaven and man 3 times. It was also because of this that there were not many supreme marks. The 5 decay of heaven and man could also be understood as the tribulation of the great 1,000 worlds. A great world like the heavenly monster continent did not rank in the top 10 during ancient times. Therefore, there was no great tribulation of the 5 decay of heaven and man. However, such a great tribulation was not a good thing, because once the 5 decay of heaven and man happened, the entire martial god continent would be extremely weak, and the world barrier would completely disappear. At that time, the martial god continent would be in real danger. Chapter 209. When the 5 signs of heaven's decay occurred in a plane, various calamities would occur. At the same time, various ancient secrets would appear. For example, great tombs of powerhouses, ancient ruins, or even supreme inheritances. Countless terrifying inheritances would appear. And there might even be inheritances of gods. At that time, the entire continent's world energy would skyrocket. At the same time, countless powerful peerless geniuses would suddenly appear on the continent. With so many heroes competing, the entire continent would fall into chaos. The appearance of these ruins and inheritances would naturally be a great fortune for the martial god continent. If the martial god continent could absorb all these inheritances and ruins, the entire continent would usher in earth-shattering changes. Using these inheritances and ruins, the strength of the martial god continent would rapidly increase, and its strength would increase by 100 times, or even 1,000 times. The number of cultivators would also increase, and the strength of the powerhouses would also increase. In the end, the entire martial god continent's ranking in the 3,000 worlds would rapidly rise. As the number of cultivators increased, and the powerhouses became stronger, the world's ranking would also begin to rise. Unfortunately, when the 5 signs of heaven's decay occurred, the world barrier would disappear. At that time, cultivators from other worlds could enter the martial god continent at will, and the great fortune of the martial god continent would naturally be snatched by the powerhouses of other worlds. Although the 5 signs of heaven's decay was a great fortune, it was also a great calamity. When the world barrier disappeared, the imprint left behind by the Supreme Being would be affected. At that time, even the supreme powerhouses of the Emperor realm would descend on the martial god continent. After all, no one would be able to resist the temptation of the Supreme Being's inheritance appearing. Even the top 10 worlds of the 3,000 worlds would not be able to resist sending people to snatch the supreme opportunities to replenish their own world's world energy. Therefore, the 9-headed emperor had such an idea. When the martial god continent experienced the 5 signs of heaven's decay, the world barrier would disappear, and the Supreme Being's imprint would lose its effect. He would directly descend on the Langya Holy Land and destroy it. At the same time, he could also snatch all kinds of opportunities and fortunes in the martial god continent, increasing the strength of the 9-headed divine dragon clan again. After knowing this, the 9-headed divine dragon clan leader became so excited. If they could obtain great fortune in the martial god continent this time, their strength would rapidly increase. The strength of the 9-headed mystical flood dragon clan would increase rapidly, and their status in the divine demon continent would rise again. They might even become the strongest clan in the divine demon continent. Ancestor, is what you said true? Hearing the 9-headed sovereign's words, the 9-headed divine dragon clan leader's face was filled with excitement. He had been stuck in the half-step emperor realm for who knew how long, and with his talent, he would never be able to break through to the emperor realm. But now, the martial god continent's Deva's decay was about to descend. This was simply a great opportunity for him. As long as he obtained a supreme opportunity on martial god continent, he would be able to break through to the emperor realm. At that time, it would not be a problem for him to traverse the 3,000 worlds. One had to know that even in the top-ranked black-yellow continent, an Emperor Realm Master was a rare peerless master. The Emperor Realm. His vital signs had surpassed everything in the past and reached a new height. This was a supreme realm that countless martial artists wanted to reach but could never reach. That's right, so you have to make arrangements for this matter. You can't be careless. As for Patriarch Qing Qiu, I'll talk to him personally. When the time comes, our 2 clans will join forces, and will be able to reap more benefits from the chaotic martial god continent. The 9-headed sovereign spoke again. His golden eyes flickered as plans emerged one after another. As for those ants in Langya Holy Land, I'll personally destroy them. Demon King Jiao, his favorite descendant, had died at the hands of Langya Holy Land. Then he had to destroy Langya Holy Land to avenge Demon King Jiao. Yes, grandson obeys. the nine-headed divine dragon clan leader said as he bowed and slowly left the hall. He had to make arrangements for everything, especially for him to break through to the Saint Emperor realm, because he knew very well that whether he could become an Emperor realm master or not depended on this. At the same time, the same scene was happening in the other continents of the 3,000 worlds. In the Heavenly Monster continent, the Heavenly Paradise continent, the Immortal Cultivation continent, the Heavenly Dragon continent, the Divine Phoenix continent, and so on. In this universe, ancient existences had awakened in various worlds, giving out orders one after another. Every world wanted a piece of the pie to strengthen themselves or their subordinates. All kinds of ancient existences were restless, waiting for the arrival of the Great Tribulation. As one of the top 10 ancient worlds, the Martial God continent was now the weakest. If the 5 decay of the heavens happened in the Black-Yellow continent, only the other 9 top-ranked worlds would send people there. The other 2,990 great worlds would be difficult to contact, because the Black-Yellow continent was too powerful. Great worlds without a strong foundation would not dare to touch it at all. Just like that, the entire universe was quietly changing. Outside the Martial God continent, countless powerful auras were constantly shuttling back and forth, as if waiting for something. As for the people in the Martial God continent, they did not know about the arrival of the Great Tribulation. Langya Holy Land, Langya Sacred Realm. This was the place where the Holy Master and Supreme Elder of Langya Holy Land were in seclusion. The world's Yuan Qi was extremely rich and amazing. At this moment, Tao Xian and the Supreme Elders were gathered together. Below them was an endless amount of primordial stones. At a glance, there were hundreds of billions of primordial stones. This was only 1/10 of the source stones accumulated in the entire Langya Sacred Realm. The source stones, which were extremely precious to countless rogue cultivators, were placed here like ordinary stones. Of course, these source stones did not belong to the Langya Holy Land. They were compensation from the other 3 holy lands. Tao Xian had punished them. Now, even the Holy Master of the 3 holy lands had fallen. Faced with the request of the Langya Holy Land, they naturally did not dare to refuse. They had almost used up all their wealth to satisfy the Langya Holy Land. Then, the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian also announced that they would not pursue the matter of besieging the Langya Holy Land in the future. At this moment, all the source stones were piled up here, placed under the Langya Mountain River diagram. It's about time. Whether he can break through to the 4th level of the Dharma Laksana realm in a month depends on these source stones. At this moment, Tao Xian spoke, looking at Jun Haotian in the picture scroll. After dealing with the aftermath of the battle, Tao Xian discussed with the Supreme Elders. They wanted to help Jun Haotian break through to the Immortal Longevity realm in the shortest time possible. They would not hesitate to use the power of the entire Holy Land. Everyone in the Langya Holy Land hoped that Jiang Chun could grow stronger as soon as possible. Moreover, Tao Xian had read the letter of the Lord of Langya. He had a premonition that something big was going to happen in the Martial God continent. Although he did not know why, Tao Xian understood it very well. It would be very difficult for him to protect the Great Langya Holy Land with his current strength. However, if Jun Haotian could grow stronger, it would be completely different. Only the 5th level of the Immortal Realm experts could barely activate the power of a supreme weapon. Therefore, Jun Haotian did not reject Tao Xian's suggestion. He always remembered what Jun Moyo said to him. The Martial God continent would face a great calamity. People from various worlds would descend upon the continent. At that time, the 5th level of the Immortal Realm would only be able to protect himself. Therefore, there was only one reason why Jun Haotian was in danger. He wanted to break through the barrier of the primordial spirit Dharma idol within a month. Become an immortal. Become an eternal giant. Chapter 2. Kunlun's Holy Son Haotian, are you ready? At this moment, the voice of the Holy Lord Tao Xian was heard. At this moment, Tao Xian had already prepared all the required Yuan stones. Next, he only needed to activate the energy within the Yuan stones and channel it into the Langya Mountain and River diagram. In fact, the supreme weapon of the Langya Holy Land, The Langya mountain and river diagram's greatest use was not for attacking. Its greatest use was to assist in cultivation. Within the Langya mountain and river diagram, there was a world of its own. There were mountains, rivers, the earth, the sun, the moon, the sea of stars, and endless yuan qi and the laws of heaven and earth. As long as enough energy was channeled in, the effect of the Langya mountain and river diagram could be activated. After the 3 holy lands had compensated the Langya Holy Land, the Langya Holy Land was now rich with yuan stones. With these yuan stones, Tao Xian could activate the terrifying energy within the diagram and channel it all into Jun Haoyan's body, allowing him to improve greatly within a short period of time. He could even break through a few realms. This was not a problem at all. Moreover, under the control of him and the Supreme Elders, this energy would only be more terrifying. Now, the Langya Holy Land could be said to be doing all they could to increase Jun Haoyan's cultivation at all costs. After hearing Tao Xian's words, Jun Haoyan nodded and slowly closed his eyes. He did not choose to reject Tao Xian's gift. The current him had an extremely strong foundation and did not need to accumulate more. Previously, Jun Haoyan had entered the immortal state in advance because of the 18 Supremacy's great salvation, immeasurable Saraira. Although he had not truly comprehended it, his physical body and primordial spirit were enough to completely control it. At this moment, what he lacked was that unparalleled power. In that case, let's begin. Seeing Jun Haoyan nod, Tao Xian turned his head and said to the Supreme Elders. After a while, all the Supreme Elders sat cross-legged on the ground. Waves of vast true vitality surged out of their bodies and channeled into the endless yuan stones. Every Supreme Elder performed a series of powerful hand seals and channeled the energy in their bodies into the yuan stones. Buzz! In an instant, the entire Langya Holy Land shone brightly, and a boundless pressure swept out. In the next moment, all the yuan stones disappeared and turned into an extremely pure energy. Like a vast divine light, it formed the shape of a heavenly dragon. Such a terrifying amount of yuan stones was a huge sum of money even for the Holy Land. At this moment, the amount of energy gathered from so many essence stones was shocking to the eye. It could even turn a barren land into a cultivation holy land with dense yuan qi. Even an immortal state elite could not possess so many yuan stones. In the next moment, all the energy surged into the Langya Mountain River illustration. At this moment, Jun Haoyan could only feel that the yuan qi around him had become extremely dense. It had even condensed into liquid. Moreover, the yuan qi was endless. It seemed that he could never absorb far. Then, without hesitation, he channeled his energy and activated the demonic heaven-devouring skill. Then, the figure of a demon appeared behind him. The demon seemed to have walked out of hell and opened its mouth to swallow. In the next moment, the endless yuan qi was absorbed by the demon. Rumble! At this moment, within the space of the Langya Mountain River illustration, endless lightning flashed and the mountains and rivers shook. The entire world was rumbling. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was absorbing the yuan qi in the void crazily. The energy in his body was also growing stronger. At this moment, his body was surrounded by endless yuan qi. It was as if his entire body was about to be upgraded. The golden ancient mammoths were also roaring continuously. It was as if they had come from the primordial era, suppressing the world. The ancient mammoths in Jun Haoyan's body were awakening crazily at this moment. Vast and terrifying energy swept through every corner of his body. His primordial spirit was sitting cross-legged under the Bodhi tree. With the continuous influx of energy, the tiny primordial spirit, that had just grown to 2 inches and 9 inches, was also affected. It kept growing taller. This was a change in the essence of the primordial spirit. Once it succeeded, it meant that Jun Haoyan was constantly becoming stronger. At the same time, his physical body and true yuan were also increasing at a terrifying rate. The furnace that was condensed in his dantian was burning fiercely, refining all kinds of superpowers. It could be said that Jun Haoyan's strength was increasing crazily. Within this period of time, he might really have the possibility of breaking through to the immortal state. It's effective. However, the energy required for the Holy Sun to break through is too terrifying. It's more than 10 times that of an ordinary primordial spirit Dharma power. One of the Supreme Elders said after a moment of contemplation. The others nodded one after another. The greater the commotion caused by Jun Haoyan's cultivation, the more shocked they were. No wonder he could be ranked as the strongest prodigy in Eastern Wilderness. Who could compare with such a terrifying foundation? If that's the case, it's certain that the Holy Sun will become the strongest in Eastern Wilderness, a Grand Elder said. A Great Elder said, because the power in Jun Haoyan's body was enough to make him feel terrified. Not necessarily. It's said that the one from the Kunlun sacred ground is also very powerful. His talent is even comparable to the Linglong sacred leader. More importantly, during this period of time, I received news that the Holy Son of Kunlun is condensing a terrifying body constitution. At this moment, another Grand Elder spoke up. An extremely terrifying body constitution? The Holy Son of the Chaos Sacred Ground, He Wujiang, was condensing a terrifying body constitution. What's going on? Another Grand Elder asked. Now, only the Holy Son of Kunlun could stop the Holy Son of Haoyan from becoming the strongest in Eastern Wilderness. It's said that the Kunlun Sacred Ground helped him condense the same body constitution as the Prime of Kunlun, which can suppress the Linglong Sacred Leader in the future. The Grand Elder said. This was the news he received, and it could be said that it was very true. When the people present heard this, they were all shocked. The same body constitution as the Kunlun Dharch. That was the primogenitor of the Kunlun sacred ground. He achieved Tao in 300,000 years, and pushed the Wushan continent to the top 20 of the 3,000 worlds with his strength alone. It was said that the Kunlun Dharch had an unparalleled body constitution, and was a terrifying existence who had conquered the Xianhuang continent. The current Holy Son of Kunlun was actually condensing the same body constitution as that supreme existence. If he succeeded, wouldn't he be able to completely suppress the Holy Son of Haoyan? If he grew up, even the Linglong sacred leader would be restricted by him? That was very terrifying. The Grand Elders lowered their heads and pondered. Don't be distracted. At this moment, Tao Xian's voice sounded. When the Grand Elders raised their heads to look at the painting, they were all shocked. Chapter 210. At that moment, all the Supreme Elders turned to look at Jun Haoyan. The scene that happened in the Langya Mountain River diagram made them endlessly shocked. Behind Jun Haoyan, an unparalleled demonic figure stood between heaven and earth. He held 3,000 worlds in his hands and stood proudly. The boundless heaven and earth essence chi in the void rushed madly into Jun Haoyan's body. Jun Haoyan absorbed all the heaven and earth essence chi, without wasting a single bit. A peerless demon lord shrouded in demonic chi, golden chi and blood scattered in all directions. One black, one gold. The two reflected each other, and formed a special scene. At that moment, Jun Haoyan's body exuded a godlike aura. All the Supreme Elders stared at Jun Haoyan with their eyes wide open. They could see that in Jun Haoyan's body, giant elephant seeds were awakening one after another. They carried boundless golden suns on their backs, and stepped on a boundless golden hell. There were also 12 demon gods accompanying him. There were also Buddhist venerables chanting Buddhist scriptures in front of him. Countless strange phenomena appeared, making Jun Haoyan look like a god descending to the mortal world. Like a supreme god walking out of a myth, his entire body exuded an unparalleled and shocking brilliance. This time, Jun Haoyan was like the son of God. The moment he grew up would be the moment he ruled over the world. What a terrifying power. What kind of power is this? Is the Holy Sun cultivating some terrifying divine power? This is too scary. So many strange phenomena have appeared, and each of them is extraordinary. Each of them can shock the world. At this moment, these phenomenons that are enough to shock the world are all concentrated on the saint. Don't you feel that the Holy Sun's divine body seems to have changed? It's as if it has been upgraded. Could it be that the Holy Sun has evolved into a divine body? At that moment, all the Supreme Elders looked at Jun Haoyan in disbelief. It was like a dream. They could sense the extraordinariness of the strange phenomenon around Jun Haoyan, and they could clearly sense the intense pressure brought about by Jun Haoyan's physique. At this moment, Jun Haoyan's body was emitting a resplendent light. His entire body seemed to be translucent, and every inch of his flesh was emitting a shocking brilliance. It was as if he was the son of the heavens, a perfect body personally created by the heavens. His mission after coming to this world was to rule the world and suppress the present. His body was like an eternally indestructible star. Nothing in the world could destroy his body. I wonder what realm Haoyan will reach after this round of mutual training. Hearing the words of the Supreme Elders, the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian slowly said. Naturally, he also thought of the Holy Son of the Kunlun Holy Land. The ambition of the Holy Son of Kunlun was so great that he wanted to condense the same physique as the Sovereign of Kunlun. That kind of physique could be said to be invincible, even in the trichiliocosm. Thinking of this, Jun Haoyan could not help but sigh. The Kunlun Holy Land was still as powerful as before. Even the Kunlun exquisite tribulation could not shake its foundation. Although the Langya Holy Land's strength was not bad, it was still inferior to the Kunlun Holy Land. Looking at Jun Haoyan, Tao Xian could not help but have a thought. One day in the future, under the leadership of the Holy Son of Haoyan, the Langya Holy Land might be able to replace the Kunlun Holy Land and become the new #1 Holy Land of the human race. However, Tao Xian also knew that it was undoubtedly extremely difficult to achieve this goal. However, as long as the Holy Son of Haoyan could grow, it would definitely be possible. I wonder who will be the #1 in Eastern Wilderness after this round of seclusion. Let's wait and see. I wonder if Haoyan will be able to completely take over the title of Kunlun Holy Son of Eastern Wilderness after this round of seclusion. Thinking of this, Tao Xian could not help but feel a little excited. If the Holy Son of Haoyan overtook the Holy Son of Kunlun, it would also indicate that the Langya Holy Land had taken the first step in suppressing the Kunlun Holy Land. Thinking of this, Tao Xian could not help but ask a few of the Grand Supreme Elders to increase the amount of primordial qi they channeled to Jun Haoyan with all their might. After this round of seclusion, if his strength could reach the immortal longevity realm, the title of #1 in Eastern Wilderness would belong to none other than him. At this moment, in the Langya landscape illustration, Jun Haoyan's primordial spirit had completely grown to a height of 3 inches in his body. This meant that his cultivation had reached the 3rd tier of the Dharma phase primordial spirit, and the ancient mammoths in his body were also crazily awakening. At this level, the ancient mammoths in Jun Haoyan's body had reached 1.2 million. They lined up together and roared in unison. Their roars were unparalleled in the world, especially the hell under their feet. It looked like it was real, and it set off the strength of the ancient mammoths. It also set off Jun Haoyan's supreme status like a real god. However, breaking into the primordial spirit Dharma phase primordial spirit was just the beginning. At this moment, the next step was the most important. Tao Xian could maintain the Langya landscape illustration for a month with all his strength. During this month, Jun Haoyan could advance without any worries. Therefore, at this moment, he did not do anything else but crazily increase his cultivation. Time passed just like this. With every minute and second, Jun Haoyan became stronger than before. Desolate suspended sea, Linglong sacred ground. 9th Heaven Linglong Palace Supreme Hall. The #1 expert of Eastern Wilderness, Linglong sacred leader, sat on the throne in the void. Beautiful, sacred, majestic, earth-shaking. All kinds of auras emerged from her body, and each of them had a terrifying power. No one knew how powerful Linglong sacred leader was. Even the other sacred leaders did not know. This guy is really beyond my imagination. At this moment, Linglong sacred leader spoke, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. She had just heard the news. Before the battle at Langya sacred ground, Linglong sacred leader was not in Wushan continent. With her ability, it was not a problem for her to travel the 3,000 worlds. However, she did not expect to hear the news as soon as she returned. It was really shocking. Linglong sacred leader, Luo Qingxue, was below her. Her face was also full of surprise. It could not be helped. Jun Haoyan's deeds were really earth-shattering. The 3 sacred grounds would not be able to recover without thousands of years. If not for the supreme weapon suppressing them, they would probably be removed from the 7 sacred grounds of the human race. I heard that Langya Sacred Ground is going to hold a grand event, and all forces in Wushan continent are invited to participate, Luo Qingxue said. Luo Qingxue said. What she meant was simple. She wanted to know if the Linglong Sacred Land would participate in this event. When the time comes, you should go personally. I have more important things to deal with, Linglong's sacred leader said. She did not plan to go to Langya Sacred Ground personally. This was because she had a feeling that Wushan continent's 5 decay was about to descend. Even she had to be prepared. Forget it. When the time comes, you should go with my clone. Perhaps we will ask Hao Tian's holy son for help in the future. However, after saying that, Linglong's sacred leader immediately denied it. Luo Qingxue was shocked by his decision to send his incarnation there. Linglong's sacred leader was the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness. She did not care about anything, let alone this grand event. However, because of Hao Tian's holy son, she made such a decision. Although it was just a clone, it meant a lot. No one would ignore it. Especially Linglong's sacred leader's words. In the future, she might ask Hao Tian's holy son for help. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Luo Qingxue knew how terrifying her master's strength was. The legends that were circulating outside were enough to shock people. She was the most amazing genius in Wushan continent in the past 50,000 years. In a short time, she had reached the immortal realm. Now, she was recognized as the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness by all the warriors. Of course, the entire Wushan continent knew this. As Linglong's sacred leader's personal disciple, Luo Qingxue naturally knew more about her master. She was very clear that her master's strength had reached a terrifying level. In the future, she might not be able to break through the void and become a supreme god. However, Luo Qingxue had absolute confidence in her master to become a supreme god. In Luo Qingxue's eyes, it was something that countless peerless geniuses could not achieve. If others knew about this, they would definitely be shocked. That was the position of a supreme god. It was not something that could be achieved so easily. Moreover, in Luo Qingxue's eyes, her master had always been domineering. Even a man could not have that kind of aura. Furthermore, with Linglong's sacred leader's pride, almost no man could enter her eyes. However, today, Linglong's sacred leader actually said that she might ask Great Heaven's Holy Son for help in the future. How could she be so sure that Great Heaven's Holy Son would definitely rule the world in the future? It should be known that even the person from Kunlun's sacred ground, who was about to condense the same supreme body constitution as Kunlun Prime, Linglong's sacred leader, did not take him seriously at all. Perhaps in Linglong's sacred leader's eyes, she was already invincible. No matter how strong Kunlun's holy son was, she had no scruples. Even if Kunlun's holy son had condensed the same supreme body constitution, he could not threaten her. That was why Luo Qingxue was shocked by Linglong's sacred leader's evaluation of Great Heaven's holy son. Even someone like her would ask Great Heaven's holy son for help in the future. How powerful would Great Heaven's holy son be in the future? Just as Luo Qingxue was thinking about this, Linglong's sacred leader, who was sitting on the throne, spoke again. How's the matter that I asked you to do? Hearing this, Luo Qingxue replied respectfully. Master, it's almost done. However, Master, is the calamity that you mentioned really coming? Luo Qingxue asked slowly. She had heard from Linglong's sacred leader that the Wushan continent was about to face a calamity. According to Linglong's sacred leader's description, in this calamity, even the sacred ground that possessed the supreme weapon would not be spared. That was enough to show how terrifying this calamity was. Linglong's sacred leader's order was for Luo Qingxue to prepare for the calamity in advance. However, Luo Qingxue was very doubtful about the calamity that Linglong's sacred leader had mentioned. Would such a calamity really come? Although it's a calamity, it's also a good opportunity. I've been waiting for this moment. At that moment, Linglong's sacred leader squinted her eyes slightly. Her eyes seemed to see through everything as she looked into the distance. It was as if she could see what was happening in the other great worlds. Hurry up and get ready. Pass down my orders. Before the Langya Grand meeting begins, All disciples are not allowed to leave. After saying that, Linglong's sacred leader's figure disappeared. Her aura disappeared from the entire world in an instant. Luo Qingxue bowed slightly, and immediately went to prepare. At the same time, the major forces in the Wushan continent were also preparing something. It was the Tai Grand Meeting that would take place a month later. Almost all the major forces would attend. The Langia sacred ground that had killed 3 sacred leaders and possessed 2 supreme weapons as its foundation. Many forces had secretly called it the first sacred ground of the human race. The Kunlun sacred ground had been too low-key recently. No matter what happened, it did not appear. Under such circumstances, time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. At that moment, in the Langia sacred ground, Jun Haoyan sat cross-legged in the Langia mountain river painting. His golden blood aura was no longer vibrating. Instead, it slowly turned from golden to blood red. Although it was only a little, it could still be seen clearly. The reddish blood was as clear as crystal, emitting a dreamy glow. The primordial qi and power contained in it were even more shocking. At that moment, a drop of Jun Haoyan's blood could sink into the river and turn it into a land of destiny. And the creatures in the river would be affected by this drop of blood and directly become spiritual monsters. This was Jun Haoyan's blood. It was almost divine blood. Jun Haoyan's sacred body had already transformed to a certain extent and was beginning to transform into a divine body. However, it was a pity that the amount of energy required to transform into a divine body was too terrifying. So until now, Jun Haoyan had not transformed into a divine body. However, he did not care. Jun Haoyan's current body constitution was not what he wanted to improve. It was his own cultivation. In his dantian, under the 7-treasure Bodhi tree, a small golden primordial spirit sat cross-legged. This small golden primordial spirit had already reached 10 inches and 9 parts. 10 inches and 9 parts meant that Jun Haoyan's primordial spirit had reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm. One more step, and he would be able to break through to the immortal longevity realm. In 20 days, his primordial spirit had reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm from the 2nd realm. This progress not only shocked him, but it also shocked Tao Xian and the others. It was really too terrifying. This was the first time they had seen such a cultivation speed. His primordial spirit has reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm. He will be able to break through to the immortal realm soon. This is really terrifying, a grand elder said and shook his head. He was a little stunned. He had wanted to say that this was crazy, but he swallowed it back. It's a pity that we have used up all of our primordial stones. Moreover, he has reached the limit of his cultivation. Another grand elder said. He looked at the primordial stones that had disappeared below and sighed. The immortal 5th realm was a qualitative change. It was not something that could be compensated with energy. There are still 10 days before the grand meeting begins. Let's let him cultivate on his own. Tao Xian stood up. He knew that there was nothing he could do to help Jun Haoyan. The path of cultivation had to be walked by oneself. Others could not help you all the time. The grand elders nodded, then got up, and went to prepare for the grand meeting. The Langia painting of mountains and rivers was still in operation, helping Jun Haoyan to understand heaven and earth, and absorb the boundless energy. All kinds of energy poured into his body, not a bit of it going to waste. At this time, Jun Haoyan's primordial mammoths had reached 3,200,000. He was more than halfway to the peak of the 3rd realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. However, 4 million primordial mammoth seeds was the limit of Jun Haoyan's primordial spirit dharma idol. Jun Haoyan believed that if he broke through to the immortal longevity realm, he would be able to reach the peak of the 3rd realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. At that time, he would be able to reach the peak of the 3rd realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. Just as Tao Xian and the others left, the Langia painting of mountains and rivers once again shot out boundless light. Jun Haoyan, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 211. At this moment, the whole world seemed to have stopped in front of Jun Haoyan's eyes. Looking at the scene in the Langya Mountain River diagram, Jun Haoyan fell into an epiphany, as if he was about to transcend. This was especially the case for Jun Haoyan's physical body right now, which was giving off an extremely horrifying aura. It was as if his every move could shake heaven and earth, and move the sun, moon, and stars. This was the indestructible heavenly God body, immortal, indestructible, and immortal. Moreover, it was the indestructible heavenly God body that was cultivated in an unparalleled holy land. If Jun Haoyan could walk out of the Wushan continent and head to the starry sky, there, his indestructible heavenly God body would be strengthened to the greatest extent. If he used his Dharma idol heaven and earth, with his means he would definitely be able to move thousands of stars. With such pure power, even an immortal longevity realm powerhouse could be defeated with one punch. He could even fight an immortal creation realm powerhouse head-on, and not be at a disadvantage. However, if he encountered an immortal realm powerhouse, Jun Haoyan would still not be able to defeat him, unless he comprehended the immortal realm and lived for 10,000 years. After reaching the immortal realm, he would be able to fight an immortal realm powerhouse. At this moment, the number of giant elephant seeds in Jun Haoyan's body had also reached an extremely terrifying number. A total of 2 million. With so many giant elephant seeds, his true core energy was incomparably dense. When fighting at the same level, he could use magical powers at will without caring about the consumption of true core energy. In addition, those supreme magical powers in the Cauldron Nourishment scriptures had also been successfully comprehended by Jun Haoyan. Even the Heavenly Heart Frost Arrogance technique that Jun Moyo left him, of the 3,000 snowflake patterns, had been refined by him as many as 30 pieces. This meant that he could be considered to have entered the door of this supreme technique. At this moment, he could change the seasons at will, change the heavens and the earth, and freeze thousands of miles with a single move. If Jun Haoyan activated the Heavenly Heart Frost Arrogance technique with all his strength, even 100,000 miles of mountains and rivers could be frozen in an instant. This supreme technique from the Divine Lady of the Four Stars Divine Realm was extraordinarily powerful. When Jun Haoyan activated this technique, he could even seal the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi and True Essence in the void. As for the other Supreme Emperor arts, Jun Haoyan had already cultivated them to an extremely high level. Especially the Do Secret character and the All Secret character, he had already reached the stage where he could use them as he pleased. He no longer needed to circulate the secret of all 10,000 times to activate it. As long as he willed it, he would be able to increase his combat power by 10 times at any time. After cultivating in the Langya Mountain River diagram for 20 days, Jun Haoyan's strength could be said to have undergone an earth-shattering change. At this moment, his strength had undergone a complete qualitative change. Compared to when he entered the Langya landscape diagram, his strength had increased by at least 10 times. Jun Haoyan was extremely confident. In the Trichiliocosm, no one in the Dharma characteristic realm was his match. No matter how monstrous the other party was, or how peerless the other party was, Jun Haoyan was even confident that he could suppress the Supreme Emperor, who dominated the heavens, when he was in the Dharma characteristic realm. This was strength, this was confidence. What a pity. I still couldn't break through to the immortal realm this time. It seems that I still need some time to break through to the immortal realm. Feeling the incomparably violent strength in his body, Jun Haoyan was extremely confident, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. After all, only by reaching the immortal realm could one be qualified to enter the ranks of the top experts in the continent. The immortal realm was extremely important to him. His main goal for this time's seclusion was to break through to the immortal realm. In the end, he didn't achieve his goal. This made Jun Haoyan feel a little disappointed. According to his estimation, the energy in the Langya landscape diagram could allow his primordial spirit to reach 10 inches and 10 parts. However, it was impossible to achieve the immortal realm. Therefore, if he wanted to reach the immortal realm, Jun Haoyan still had to find other ways. The martial god continent was about to face a great calamity. Before the calamity arrived, Jun Haoyan had to ensure that he had the strength of the immortal realm. Only then could he protect himself in this great calamity. Jun Haoyan had cultivated the demonic heaven-devouring skill to an extremely high level. At this moment, he could already devour the surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi on his own. Although he was in seclusion, Jun Haoyan didn't spend much energy to absorb the heaven and earth yuan qi. Just like that, he cultivated while thinking of a way to break through to the immortal realm. As for what was happening in the outside world, he had no idea. While Jun Haoyan was in seclusion, in the outside world, in the martial god continent's central plains. The Central Plains had always been known as the land of the dragon veins of the martial god continent. It was also the most fertile place. It could be said that this was a place full of outstanding people. The largest number of humans gathered here. However, at this moment, somewhere in the Central Plains, the heavens and earth were shaking. Endless golden clouds were surging in the void. Countless mortals gathered and knelt on the ground. They looked like they were praying to the heavens. Here a vast divine light spread out. A mountain that was originally only a few hundred meters tall suddenly grew to 1,000 meters tall. In just a single night, it had grown to a height of hundreds of thousands of zhang, reaching straight into the sky and into the clouds. Above, it looked like it was connecting the heavens and the earth. All the mortals who had lived here for generations had never seen such a scene. They all thought that it was the work of a god and kept kowtowing. This action attracted countless cultivators in the surroundings to watch. However, any cultivator who got within 10,000 meters of this huge mountain disappeared, never to appear again. Chapter 2. Son of Heaven in everyone's eyes. This divine mountain was incomparably vast. It was taller than any mountain in the martial god continent. Not only was it tall, but many cultivators couldn't see the end of the mountain when they looked at it. Some cultivators tried to fly over this divine mountain, but found that they couldn't fly above it. This divine mountain that appeared seemed to run through the entire martial god continent. Everyone in the continent looked up at it. At this moment, millions of mortals gathered at the foot of this divine mountain. They kept kowtowing to the divine mountain. Their mouths were constantly muttering something. It was as if they were praying to the heavens and earth for the blessings of the gods. Above the clouds, many cultivators from the Central Plains also gathered. They didn't care about what the mortals were doing. Instead, they looked up at the divine mountain. What's going on? At this moment, a domineering voice sounded in the void. The entire world seemed to be shaking. A man in a golden python robe suddenly appeared in the void. He was looking at the divine mountain in front of him. At this moment, this man had a dignified face. He exuded the aura of a king from head to toe. It was as if a noble son of heaven had descended. As long as this man stood there, countless people would submit to him. He was the ruler of the world. This man who suddenly appeared was the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird Empire, the head of the 4 empires in the Central Plains. He was known as the Son of Heaven. That's right, this man's name was Son of Heaven. Before the sacred mountain left the mountain, the Son of Heaven had already sensed the strange movements here. After that, Son of Heaven didn't hesitate at all. He led many experts here to see what was going on. After all, this area was the territory of the Vermilion Bird Empire. Naturally, he had to investigate thoroughly. Your Highness, there's no news from the experts we arranged to enter this mountain. As soon as Son of Heaven finished speaking, a middle-aged man came to Son of Heaven's side. This man's aura was also extremely terrifying. His cultivation had even reached the immortal longevity realm. Such a supreme existence was incomparably lowly in front of Son of Heaven at this moment. This scene naturally caused the bystanders to be incomparably shocked. We lost news. Did none of them come back? Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Son of Heaven immediately frowned. He looked at the divine mountain again with a trace of surprise on his face. One had to know that the people he arranged to enter this mountain were all experts. There were even peak transcendence realm existences. Even such experts didn't come out after entering this mountain. And there was no news at all. No one knew if they were alive or dead. Did you find out any other information? After a moment, Son of Heaven ignored this matter and asked the middle-aged man again. With such an attitude, it was as if even the death of a primordial spirit transcendence realm expert was nothing in front of him. As one of the oldest empires in the Central Plains, the Vermilion Bird Empire's foundation wasn't any weaker than the Kunlun Holy Land. Your Highness, we've investigated a lot. According to the words of the mortals here, this place was originally a low hill, but for some reason, it suddenly rose by more than 10,000 feet last night. It's simply inconceivable. Hearing Son of Heaven's question again, the middle-aged man's face turned serious and slowly told him what he knew. Even as an immortal level 5 expert, he had never experienced such an unbelievable scene. The scene in front of him was simply too unbelievable. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he probably wouldn't have dared to believe all of this. In just one night, the small mountain that was a few hundred meters tall had such a change? Oh! After hearing the man's words, Son of Heaven's face was actually filled with curiosity. Obviously, he had also developed a trace of interest in this matter. But that was all there was to it. He could clearly feel that within this sacred mountain, there were definitely many shocking secrets hidden. After the primordial spirit transcendence realm experts entered, they all disappeared without a trace and didn't cause any trouble. He even felt that even if the immortal level experts of ancient giants entered this mountain, they probably wouldn't be able to come out. Fortunately, at present, this sacred mountain didn't pose any threat to the Vermilion Bird Empire's immortals. Otherwise, even he wouldn't be able to do anything. By the way, Your Highness, it's said that this mountain is called Barren Mountain. At this moment, the middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something and immediately spoke up. It was as if in his heart, the two words Barren Mountain represented some unusual meaning. However, after hearing this, Son of Heaven didn't have much of an expression. This was because he didn't know what this sacred mountain called Barren Mountain represented. Pay attention to the movements here. I'll go back and report to my father, Son of Heaven said. After discovering that there was no threat, he directly left this place. At this moment in the Langya sacred ground, Jun Haoyan was still in seclusion. Ding! The check-in time has been refreshed. Host, do you wish to check in? At this moment, a familiar system notification sounded in Jun Haoyan's mind. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan's face naturally lit up. He was just worrying about how to break through to the immortal level. Perhaps this check-in could help him? Thinking of this, Jun Haoyan muttered in his mind. Check-in. Ding! Congratulations to the host for check-in successfully. You have obtained the boundless heaven and earth treasure plate. The next moment, the system's voice sounded again. At this moment, after hearing this voice, Jun Haoyan's expression was slightly stunned. However, when the information of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate appeared in his mind, he began to fall into an incomparable shock. He never expected that he would actually obtain such a rare treasure from checking in this time. Through the information transmitted to him by the system, Jun Haoyan naturally also knew the function of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate. This boundless heaven and earth treasure plate only had one greatest ability, and that was that it could detect all the treasures in the world. Yes, as long as one had this treasure plate, one could find all the treasures and supreme fortunes in the world. As long as these treasures or fortunes were in front of this treasure plate, they would have nowhere to hide. Moreover, according to the settings of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate, the treasures it searched for were the most powerful and most precious fortunes in the surroundings. Although this strange treasure seemed to have only one use, it was still extremely powerful. It was indeed very powerful. That was why Jun Haoyan was so shocked. With this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate, Jun Haoyan could find countless heavenly treasures. Of course, it was not that easy to use this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate to find treasures. Injecting true essence into it was only one of the steps. If he wanted to activate it a second time, he would need to wait. Therefore, it was not that easy to use this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate to find his own fortune. Without much hesitation, Jun Haoyan took out the compass in his hand. Layers of light surged on it, looking mysterious and powerful. As long as Jun Haoyan wanted, this treasure plate could find the strongest fortune in the surroundings. However, he did not do so because the setting of this treasure plate was that the range of treasure hunting was based on one's strength. Jun Haoyan had the strength of a primordial soul Dharma phase master, so according to his estimation, He could only find the strongest fortune in the surrounding 100,000 miles. Almost all of the surrounding 100,000 miles could be considered the territory of the Langya sacred land. Of course, he knew what was inside. Therefore, Jun Haoyan did not use this first opportunity to activate it now. At this moment, Jun Haoyan placed the boundless heaven and earth treasure plate into his sea of Qi Dantian and took a deep breath. Now the primordial soul in his body had reached 10 inches and 10 parts. He was one step away from the immortal longevity realm. Unfortunately, this step required various factors and good fortune to be taken. It was not enough to just have powerful energy. Just as Jun Haoyan was about to continue his seclusion, Tao Xian's voice came from outside. Haoyan, something big has happened in the central plains. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan suddenly opened his eyes. Could it be a change in the martial god continent? It was going to start so soon. Chapter 212. Originally, Jun Haoyan had thought that the calamity that Jun Moyo had mentioned would take some time to descend. He had not expected it to be so soon. In the next moment, Jun Haoyan stood up and activated the demonic heaven-devouring skill. He directly absorbed all the qi of heaven and earth in the void into his energy center. Then, the small primordial spirit in Jun Haoyan's body grew a little and became 10 inches tall. It turned into a stream of light and entered between his eyebrows. At this moment the 2 million giant elephant seeds that had awakened in his body began to grow rapidly. In a short while, they had reached over 4 million. This number was already the peak that Jun Haoyan could achieve in the transcendence realm. At this moment, he was only one step away from breaking through to the immortal realm. All he needed was an opportunity, and Jun Haoyan could successfully break through to the immortal realm. Moreover, this opportunity was not far away, since his cultivation had already reached the peak of the transcendence realm, and he was unable to break through for the time being. Jun Haoyan did not hesitate and walked out of the Langya landscape illustration. Outside the Langya landscape illustration, Tao Xian saw Jun Haoyan come out and felt Jun Haoyan's aura. Tao Xian could not help but be shocked. Primordial spirit at the peak of the transcendence realm, and 10 inches of primordial spirit. Tao Xian said slowly as he stared at Jun Haoyan carefully. With just one look, Tao Xian could tell Jun Haoyan's current cultivation level. During the time that Jun Haoyan was in seclusion, he had been wholeheartedly activating the Langya landscape illustration. Therefore, Tao Xian could tell Jun Haoyan's current cultivation level at a glance. After Jun Haoyan heard Tao Xian's words, he nodded slowly. There was no need to hide his cultivation level from Tao Xian. Looks like you're just a step away from achieving a breakthrough to the sempiternal realm. Tao Xian continued. The fact that Jun Haoyan could reach his current level of strength was indeed shocking to him. However, when he thought of the monstrous talent that Jun Haoyan had displayed, he was shocked. It was reasonable for him to be able to break through to the peak of the transcendence realm, but it was also unexpected. However, if a martial artist wanted to break through to the immortal 10,000 longevity realm, this was a process of qualitative change. Breaking through to the sempiternal realm was both simple and difficult. For some warriors with ordinary talents, even if they cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years, they still wouldn't be able to step into the immortal longevity realm. There were even some who couldn't break through to the sempiternal realm, even after death. However, in Tao Xian's opinion, it was only a matter of time before Jun Haoyan broke through to the immortal realm. Holy Lord, what did you say happened in the central plains? Jun Haoyan didn't say much on this topic. Instead, he asked Tao Xian. As the center of the martial god continent, the Central Plains could be said to be a place full of outstanding talents. It also had to be suppressed by the 4 ancient empires. It could be said that a small change in the Central Plains was enough to alarm the entire continent. There's something fishy about this. Let's go to the Langya Sacred Palace first. Tao Xian said. Upon hearing that, Jun Haoyan nodded and left with Tao Xian. The two of them instantly turned into 2 streams of light and flew out of the Langya Sacred Palace. At this moment, in the Langya Sacred Palace, All the grand elders and hall masters of the Langya sacred palace had gathered. Jun Haoyan could even feel that some of the grand elders and hall masters' auras had become much stronger. It was obvious that they had benefited greatly from the previous life and death battle. As expected, the path of cultivation still had to go through trials and tribulations. After a great calamity, there would be new life. After successfully surviving the previous calamity, the Langya sacred palace was now reborn. Now there were many things in the Langya sacred palace that were waiting to be rebuilt. It was about to burst forth towards the peak of the Langya sacred palace. At this moment, all the grand elders and hall masters closed their eyes and waited quietly. Buzz! At this moment, two figures appeared in the Langya sacred palace, causing everyone to open their eyes. Greetings, Holy Lord. Greetings, Holy Son. Greetings, Holy Lord. Greetings, Holy Son. Everyone spoke at this moment with smiles and a trace of respect on their faces. Originally, it was normal for Tao Xian to receive such treatment as the Holy Lord of a sacred palace. However, Jun Haoyan was only the Holy Son. In terms of seniority, both the grand elders and hall masters were his seniors. Now, however, he was receiving the same treatment. In the eyes of outsiders, this was simply impossible. But now, both the grand elders and hall masters were treating Jun Haoyan the same way. Everyone was sincere and had some respect for him. In cultivation, the one who reached the top was first. Age had nothing to do with it. Although Jun Haoyan's cultivation was not necessarily as high as the grand elders, he had played a vital role in the previous battle. It was because of him that the Langya sacred palace could not be destroyed. It was normal for him to receive such treatment. At this moment, in the Langya sacred palace, in addition to the Holy Lord throne that belonged to Tao Xian, there was also the Holy Sun throne that was second only to Tao Xian's. This throne belonged to Jun Haoyan, and was only half a step behind the Holy Lord throne. From this, it could be seen that Jun Haoyan's terrifying status in the Langya sacred palace was much higher than that of the grand elders. Tao Xian and Jun Haoyan both nodded at this moment. They did not say anything and took their places. Now that the upper echelons of the Langya sacred palace were standing in this place, Jun Haoyan guessed that what had happened in Zhongzhou was not a small matter. Then, Tao Xian gestured for everyone to sit down, and then began to talk about what had happened in Zhongzhou recently. What? A divine mountain suddenly rose up in Zhongzhou and went straight to the outer region. It's called Mount Tai. Jun Haoyan was extremely surprised when he heard Tao Xian's words. If it was just an ordinary change, he would not be so surprised. But that divine mountain was called Mount Tai. He was not sure if the two were related in any way. Why? Do you know this giant mountain? Tao Xian asked. They were very surprised because Jun Haoyan, who had always been steady, rarely had such a reaction. When Jun Haoyan heard this, he immediately shook his head, indicating that he did not know. The people present did not suspect anything. After all, Jun Haoyan now had great prestige in the Langya sacred palace. It was impossible for anyone to suspect him. After Jun Haoyan sat down, he kept frowning but soon calmed down. Perhaps it was just the same name. He then asked, "Is there any other news?" "Yes," Tao Xian answered. Although it happened in Zhongzhou, it was very easy for a sacred palace to gather information. Then, as Tao Xian continued to explain, Jun Haoyan became more and more surprised. That was because the divine mountain called Mount Tai was extremely mysterious. There were powerhouses from the Vermilion Bird dynasty who approached within 10,000 meters of it, but they all disappeared in the end. No one even knew if they were dead or alive. But strangely, as long as people with ordinary cultivation entered, they would not be affected at all. Under such circumstances, people from major forces sent mortals to explore. Unfortunately, the information they received was that there was no way to go up, as if there was some barrier blocking them. Under such circumstances, no one knew what secrets were hidden in Mount Tai. But even so, people from major forces still received a small amount of information. That was, there were mortals who saw it at the peak of the divine mountain. There was a figure wearing a dragon robe, a sacrifice to the heavens. Chapter 2. Jun Haoyan's guess at the peak of Mount Tai. There was someone wearing a yellow robe offering sacrifices to the heavens. These rumors were said to have been spread by mortals. Warriors standing 10,000 meters away from Mount Tai could not see anything on Mount Tai. Only after going deep could they discover the strange phenomenon inside. But Mount Tai could only be entered by ordinary mortals. This news immediately shocked all the major forces in Wushan continent. Because all warriors were not allowed to enter Mount Tai, the secret rumors circulating on the continent were all from the mouths of mortals. In short, the news brought by these mortals was trustworthy. After all, in front of warriors, these mortals did not dare to lie at all. However, when Jun Haoyan heard this news again, his mind was shocked again. In his previous life, the world he lived in, it was also a famous Mount Tai, although the height of Mount Tai could not be compared to the divine mountain in Middle Earth. In his previous life, Jun Haoyan had seen some information about it. Legend had it that Mount Tai was the place where all the emperors worshipped. In his previous life, regardless of whether it was the emperors of ancient times or the emperors of previous dynasties, they would all climb Mount Tai to worship and express their orthodoxy. And according to the news leaked by these mortals, it seemed that Mount Tai in Middle Earth was the same. Could it be that Wushan continent has some connection with the world of my previous life? Are these two Mount Tai the same one? At this moment, Jun Haoyan had already made up his mind. If he had the chance, he would go there personally to investigate. But according to the news, any warrior who wanted to enter Mount Tai would disappear very quickly. It was unknown if immortal realm warriors could come out after entering. But even if Dharma characteristic realm warriors entered, they would not return. They could not even cause a ripple. From this point of view, the current Mount Tai could be considered to be extremely dangerous. If one was not careful, they might not be able to return. Many powerful warriors on the continent did not dare to take the risk. However, Jun Haoyan was not afraid at all. In order to investigate the secrets of Mount Tai, he had to enter Mount Tai at least once. So far, this is the only news we have. And this is only what happened in Middle Earth. At this moment, Tao Xian spoke slowly. At this moment, he was also frowning. Obviously, these strange things had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. Even as the Holy Lord of the human race, he could not find out the secrets behind all this. Even the number one dynasty in Middle Earth, the Vermilion Bird dynasty, after discovering Mount Tai, had given up after spending a lot of effort to investigate it to no avail. They could only allow Mount Tai to develop and affect countless mortals. As one of the oldest factions on Wushan continent, they had actually chosen to retreat directly. From this, it was clear that the Vermilion Bird dynasty was aware of the dangers involved. But the way Dao Yin saw it, he had an ominous premonition from start to finish. However, when Jun Haoyan heard Tao Xian's words, he caught some information. He immediately asked Tao Xian, "Holy Lord, do you mean that there are other places besides Middle Earth that are experiencing strange changes?" Jun Haoyan was very suspicious. Could this be the great calamity that Jun Moyo mentioned? That's right. In the north of Eastern Wilderness, where it meets North Sea, there is a place called Penglai that is covered in endless fog. A grand elder spoke up and said this. The moment he said this, Jun Haoyan was shocked again. First Mount Tai in Middle Earth, and now Penglai in Eastern Wilderness? What was going on? Could this Wushan continent really have a lot to do with the world in his previous life? Or maybe they just have the same name. This time, even Jun Haoyan was beginning to feel suspicious. However, when he wanted to investigate further, that grand elder didn't say any important information. This was because no matter if it was a mortal or a cultivator, or even any creature that entered Penglai that was shrouded in fog, they never came out again. North Sea was the gathering place of the demon race. And the demon race was the greatest enemy of all races. They had once launched many great wars in ancient times. In a certain era, they had even ruled 3,000 worlds and challenged the prestige of the immortal god world. After that, the immortal god world paid a huge price and sent down many eternal and ancient existences to defeat the demon race. In the end, they sealed the demon race in the north of various great worlds. In other words, The north of the 3,000 worlds was a terrifying place that sealed the immortal god world and the demon world. It was also where all races stopped, because no one knew what would happen if the demon race appeared again. As for Penglai, it was shrouded in fog. This was the place that the entire Wushan continent paid attention to. No one wanted the demon race to break the seal, because no one could defeat the demon race, except the immortal god world. However, now it seemed that other than being shrouded in fog, there was no change in Penglai. However, the occurrence of these two major events caused all the warriors in the Wushan continent to feel uneasy. Some people even said that this was a sign that the Wushan continent was about to be destroyed, and that a great disaster was about to befall. However, not many people cared about this kind of talk. Although there was a disaster that could destroy a great world, it would not happen so easily. In short, there were all kinds of theories. This was also the reason why the higher-ups of the Langya Sacred Land had called for a meeting. After all, as the top force of the Wushan continent, they had to take precautions. Holy Sun, what do you think about these things? After a long discussion, Tao Xian looked at Jun Haotian. Letting Jun Haotian participate in the meeting meant that he now had the right to speak, and even the right to make decisions. At this moment, after hearing these things, Jun Haotian stood up. I suggest that we call back all the disciples who have gone out to train during this period of time. The entire Langya Sacred Land will enter a state of martial law. Without orders, no one is allowed to go out easily. Jun Haotian looked at everyone present. His tone was very solemn, almost without any consideration, as he voiced his opinion. When the Supreme Elder and Tao Xian heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Martial law in the Langya Sacred Land? Without orders, no disciples were allowed to go out to train? One had to know that this was only done when the sacred land was in danger of being destroyed. Now Jun Haotian had actually said this in front of everyone, and suggested that the higher-ups issue such an order. Although the other sacred lands had also called for a meeting of the higher-ups, almost all of them were observing. They only asked their disciples to be careful, and did not issue such an order. The result of doing so would cause panic in the sacred land. Unless it was a last resort, no one would do this. Are you suspecting something? Although Tao Xian was surprised by this order, he did not raise any objections. Instead, he asked directly. He knew that Jun Haotian must have his own reasons for doing so. It was also possible that he had sensed something. Now Jun Haotian was not just the Holy Sun. He was a figure standing at the top of the Langya Sacred Land. The other Supreme Elders did the same, waiting for Jun Haotian's explanation. Jun Haotian looked at everyone present, took a deep breath and said, "Perhaps the most terrifying catastrophe of the Wushan continent is really coming." Chapter 213. A terrifying great calamity is about to descend upon the world. As soon as Jun Haotian said this, everyone present was shocked. The various Supreme Elders looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with suspicion. If this sentence was said by someone else, they would only treat it as a rumor, and would not believe it at all. However, these words actually came out of Jun Haotian's mouth. With their understanding of Jun Haotian, they absolutely believed that Jun Haotian would not speak without thinking. Then, everyone looked at Jun Haotian with a hint of doubt in their eyes. They were guessing in their hearts. Did the Holy Sun know something? Of course, these were just guesses in their hearts. As for the specific situation, they still had to hear Jun Haotian explain it personally. At this moment, Jun Haotian's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation. He hesitated in his heart whether he should tell everyone what Jun Moyo told him. Of course, with Jun Haotian's current strength and status, even if he did not want to explain, no one would dare to force him. Everyone would also consider his words carefully. After hesitating for a moment, Jun Haotian decided to tell everyone everything. After all, this matter would be known by the world sooner or later. Jun Haotian looked at everyone present. His expression did not change as he began to explain everything. He first told everyone about Jun Moyo. He did not even hide Jun Moyo's origin from everyone. Jun Haotian knew very well in his heart that if this great calamity really descended, It would be difficult for the entire Langya Holy Land to survive this great calamity. When the great calamity descended, the world barrier would disappear. At that time, the peerless masters of the 3,000 great worlds would descend upon the martial god continent. How terrifying would that be? How many terrifying existences would descend upon the continent? At that time, even the various sacred masters would not be much of a threat. As long as an Emperor Realm Master descended upon the martial god continent, they would be able to kill holy masters at will. The power structure of the martial god continent would instantly change. Furthermore, the various experts from the 3,000 worlds would not care about the destruction caused to the martial god continent. If a battle between Emperor Realm Masters was unrestrained, it would be enough to shatter the entire eastern wilderness. After the calamity was over, these foreign experts would decisively leave the martial god continent, leaving behind a mess. To them, the destruction of the martial god continent did not matter. If the martial god continent was destroyed, then a colossus like the Langya Sacred Ground, as one of the strongest forces on the martial god continent, would definitely be the first to be affected. These secrets were told by Jun Moyo to Jun Haotian at the Small Thunder Temple. After a while, Jun Haotian finally told him everything. These words were also a warning to everyone in the Langya Holy Land. When they heard Jun Haotian's words, everyone present, including the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian, was extremely shocked. At this moment, it was as if they had heard something from the Arabian Nights. What Jun Haotian said was completely beyond their imagination and understanding. Jun Moyo was actually one of the clones of the supreme existence of the god world, goddess Xianji. Such an existence was actually a true disciple of their Langya Holy Land. This news was too shocking for the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, and the supreme elders present, especially Jun Moyo's master. So Linglong Holy Master knew about Jun Moyo's identity, so she tried to snatch Jun Moyo. At this moment, a supreme elder spoke slowly. It was Jun Moyo's master. At this moment he finally understood the cause and effect of the matter. However, he still found it hard to believe about Jun Moyo's origin. Haotian, are you talking about the legendary 5 decay of heaven and man? At this moment, after hearing Jun Haotian's words, Tao Xian seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke. At the mention of the 5 decay of heaven and man, Tao Xian's expression was filled with caution. 5 decay of heaven and man? It was the first time Jun Haotian had heard of this term, so he immediately looked at Tao Xian in confusion. Seeing the confusion in Jun Haotian's eyes, Tao Xian immediately began to explain. After a moment, Jun Haotian understood what the 5 decay of heaven and man was. His expression became unprecedentedly cautious. At this moment, Jun Haotian was even more certain that the great calamity that Jun Moyo had mentioned was the 5 decay of heaven and man. Jun Haotian. He had also read some books about the ancient secrets of the martial god continent. The ancient books had mentioned that a long time ago, the martial god continent was ranked very high in the 3,000 worlds. When it was born, it was ranked in the top 10 worlds of the 3,000 worlds. Every once in a while, a great calamity would descend between the heavens and the earth in the top 10 worlds. At this moment, Jun Haotian already understood that this so-called great calamity should be the 5 decay of heaven and man. Only by successfully passing the 5 decay of heaven and man would one be able to rise in the 3,000 worlds ranking. On the other hand, if one failed to pass the calamity, one's ranking would drop. Unfortunately, so far, only the martial god continent had failed to pass the calamity among the top 10 worlds. The current martial god continent was not even ranked in the top 500 of the 3,000 worlds. The reason for all of this was because the previous 5 decay of heaven and man had failed to pass the calamity. Since MOU said it, it can't be wrong. I didn't expect that the 5 decay of heaven and man would really descend. Tao Xian took a deep breath and slowly stood up with an extremely solemn expression. Since he already knew Jun Moyo's background as an assassin, he naturally believed in Jun Moyo's words without a doubt. This 5 decay of heaven and man calamity was enough to reshuffle the forces of the entire martial god continent. If it was more serious, perhaps the entire martial god continent would be buried. For the sake of the Langya sacred ground, or the future of the entire martial god continent, they had to treat this great calamity seriously. Thinking of this, a trace of determination flashed across Tao Xian's face. Then he looked at everyone present and spoke directly. As the Holy Lord of Langya, I issue a decree. From today onwards, the entire sacred ground will enter a state of emergency. All the disciples of the Langya sacred ground are not allowed to leave without orders. In addition, I announce that Jun Haoyan has already stepped into the peak of the 10th level of the Transcendence realm. Once he breaks through to the 5th level of the Immortal realm, it will be the time for him to succeed the position of the sacred leader. From today onwards, the Holy Son of Haoyan has the authority to control the life and death of the entire sacred ground. The entire Langya sacred ground must obey the orders of the Holy Son. At this moment, Tao Xian directly announced to the entire Langya sacred ground. His voice was extremely loud. Although it was only heard in the Langya sacred hall, it spread throughout the entire Langya sacred ground. Tao Xian's words directly caused the entire Langya sacred ground to enter a state of emergency. What's going on? Didn't we just end the emergency state of emergency? Is something going to happen again? The Holy Son of Haoyan can directly succeed the position of the sacred leader after breaking through to the 5th level of the Immortal realm. Is the sacred leader going to give the position to the Holy Son of Haoyan? Hearing Langya's holy leader Tao Xian's words, all the pro-disciples were aghast and filled with disbelief. The Holy Lord of Langya's orders were too sudden and shocking for them, especially that Haoyan, as long as he broke through to the Immortal realm, he could directly take on the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. One had to know that in every sacred ground of the human clan, there were even people who wanted to take on the position of the sacred leader. They had to go through the heavenly worship ceremony and obtain the approval of the heavenly worship ceremony before they could take on the position of the sacred leader. Many people felt that Dao Yan's order was given a little too early, too careless. At this moment in the Langya sacred hall, all the temple masters and supreme elders stood up. Although they looked a little hesitant, they hesitated for a moment before directly saying, "We obey the sacred leader's orders." If it were any other time, no matter how strong and talented Jun Haoyan was, they would still follow the sacred ground's rules. They would also insist on following the sacred ground's rules. But now the 5 decay of heavenly beings was about to happen. They could not care less during this critical period. At this moment, Tao Xian seemed to have thought of something and looked at Jun Haoyan. He said with a somewhat grave tone, "Is Supreme Sky willing to be the Holy Lord of Langya?" Translator, Naebo Studio Editor. Naebo Studio, are you willing to become the Holy Lord of Langya? Tao Xian's sudden words were enough to shock everyone present. At this moment, not only was Tao Xian staring at Jun Haoyan, but all the people from Langya Holy Land in the hall were also staring at him. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. In their hearts, they hoped that Jun Haoyan could become the next Holy Lord of the Langya sacred ground. They also believed that the powerful Holy Son of Haoyan would lead the Langya Holy Ground to new heights. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was definitely everyone's favorite. During his time as the Holy Son of Haoyan, Jun Haoyan had completely conquered all the elders and temple masters of the Langya sacred ground with his talent, strength, and domineering attitude. Jun Haoyan had killed many geniuses and peerless geniuses. His invincible attitude among the younger generation had completely conquered hundreds of thousands of Langya disciples. At this moment, if Jun Haoyan were to ascend to the position of Holy Lord, no one would object. To ascend to the position of Holy Lord so easily, this had never happened before in the Wushan continent. This was not only the case in the Langya sacred ground, but also in the other sacred grounds and dynasties of the continent. If the Holy Son wanted to ascend to the position of Holy Lord, he would not only need to rely on strength, but also monstrous methods. For example, if the crown prince of the 4 dynasties wanted to ascend to the throne, he would also need to secretly win over his officials and consolidate his power. When Tao Xian was still around, he had also gone through many battles before successfully ascending to the position of Holy Lord. Unlike Jun Haoyan's current situation, There had been a total of 4 holy sun in the Langya sacred ground back then. Tao Xian's success in ascending to the position of Holy Lord was due to his killing methods, talent, and strength. But now, Jun Haoyan was the only holy sun in the Langya sacred ground. There was no competition, and no one could compete with him. Moreover, the entire Bluetooth sacred ground, including the Holy Lord, Grand Supreme Elder, and all the Langya disciples, they were all thinking that Jun Haoyan could become the next Holy Lord of Langya. In that great battle, Jun Haoyan had displayed his strength and methods. Everyone in the Langya sacred ground believed that he could lead the Langya sacred ground to glory again. Moreover, the Wushan continent would face an unparalleled calamity. The arrival of the 5 decay of the heavenly man had caused everyone in the Langya sacred ground to panic. At this moment, they needed a powerful person to lead them. Of course, this did not mean that the Langya disciples no longer trusted the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian. They just needed a more powerful Holy Lord to lead the Langya sacred ground. In that great battle, Jun Haoyan had displayed strength that was far stronger than Tao Xian's. Therefore, the Langya disciples hoped that Jun Haoyan could step forward and lead the Langya sacred ground. Of course, this was not only what the Langya disciples hoped to see. Tao Xian also hoped that Jun Haoyan could take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. At this moment, Jun Haoyan's heart was filled with shock when he saw this scene. He looked at everyone present and fell silent for a moment. To be honest, Jun Haoyan had never thought of taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. He had never thought of taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. To him, the Langya sacred ground, and even the entire Wushan continent were too small. He had ambitions in his heart, and wanted to explore the 3,000 worlds. That was his true stage. When he had agreed to become the Holy Son of Langya, it was only to deal with the Xiang Holy Son. However, if he had agreed to become the Holy Lord of Langya, he could no longer rely on himself. His every word and action represented the entire Langya sacred ground. From now on, he would unconditionally pay any price to protect the Langya sacred ground. This was a responsibility that he had to fulfill after becoming the Holy Lord of Langya. Jun Haoyan had always been a loner and was most afraid of troublesome matters. When he heard Tao Xian's words, his first reaction was to directly reject it. However, when he saw the hope in the eyes of everyone present, he fell silent and did not open his mouth to reject it. He did not expect that everyone present would support him to take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. When Jun Haoyan stepped down, if anyone objected to him taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya, he could take the opportunity to step down. However, at this moment no one objected. This made him feel a little conflicted. This scene in front of him was the hope and trust that all the disciples and elders of Langya had in him. During his time as the Holy Son of Langya, the Langya sacred ground had done a lot for him. As the Holy Son of Langya, he had to fulfill his responsibility to protect the Langya sacred ground. Moreover, in Jun Haoyan's opinion, there was no conflict between becoming the Holy Lord of Langya and exploring the 3,000 worlds in the future. Of course, the time might be delayed for a while. Jun Haoyan planned in his heart that after he led the entire Langya sacred ground and successfully survived the 5 decay of heaven and man, when the time came, he would support others to take the position. Therefore Jun Haoyan thought it through. He did not have to reject the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. Thinking of this, Jun Haoyan could not help but sigh slightly in his heart and feel a little emotional. In his heart, he had never thought that there would be such a day. When this day suddenly came, Jun Haoyan, who had always been calm, was actually at a loss. After calming his slightly agitated emotions, Jun Haoyan looked at the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, and the Supreme Elders present. Then he nodded solemnly. Okay, I agree to take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. In the main hall, Jun Haoyan's voice was sonorous and powerful. It was full of dominance and confidence. When Jun Haoyan said this, everyone present, including Tao Xian and the Supreme Elders, looked excited. They secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In their hearts, with Jun Haoyan's talent, sooner or later, he would be able to break through the 5 immortal realms and reach a higher realm. At that time, the Trichiliocosm would be his real stage. The small Langia sacred ground would not be able to restrain him at all. The moment Tao Xian spoke, he did not even have a trace of hope that Jun Haotian could be the Holy Lord of Langia. At this moment, when he saw that Jun Haotian had actually agreed, he was undoubtedly very excited, because this represented Jun Haotian's acknowledgement of the Langia sacred ground. This was a true sense of belonging. It also represented that the Langia sacred ground's unconditional support of the Holy Son of Haotian's choice was not wrong. In that case, I will wait for you to successfully break through the immortal realm. At this moment, Tao Xian looked at Jun Haotian with a face full of smiles. Ever since he took the position of the Holy Lord of Langia, he had never been as relaxed as he was today. It was as if a very heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. In fact, although becoming the Holy Lord of the human clan's sacred ground was a very honorable thing, it meant that from now on, he would stand at the peak of the martial god continent. However, it came with a heavy responsibility, a responsibility that could not be shirked no matter what. Now, Tao Xian had handed this responsibility to Jun Haotian. Naturally, he felt much more relaxed. By the way, it's time for us to hold the Langia conference in 5 days. But now that this has happened, do we still need to hold the conference? At this moment, a supreme elder seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke up. Back then, it was Jun Haotian's idea to hold the Langia conference. Given Jun Haotian's status in the Langia sacred ground, his words were naturally a big deal for the entire Langia sacred ground. Everyone was seriously preparing for it. But now, the Deva's decay was about to descend on the martial god continent. Whether this Langia conference could still be held or not was a problem for everyone present. There's no need to worry about this. The Langia conference will still be held. After all, the Deva's decay is not something that the Langia sacred ground alone can contend against. Hearing this, Jun Haotian replied. Although he had not officially taken the position of the Holy Lord of Langia, his words carried the same weight as Tao Xian's. That's right. The conference must be held as usual. We have already sent out a notice, and the various sacred grounds in the eastern wilderness have already responded. This conference is also our preparation to resist the Deva's decay. Tao Xian's attitude was the same as Jun Haotian's. He agreed to continue holding the Langia conference. The Deva's decay was about to descend. It would be best if they could get a few allies at this time. Hearing Tao Xian's words, all the supreme elders present nodded in agreement. Next, they had to prepare for the Langia conference. After discussing the specific matters, Jun Haotian directly left the Langia sacred ground and returned to his Haotian divine peak. Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun! Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun! Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun! Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun! When Jun Haotian returned to the acquired Heaven Divine Blade, he was surprised to find that the 108 true disciples of the Langia Holy Ground were all present. When they saw Jun Haotian appear, they knelt on the ground without any hesitation. At this moment, they looked at Jun Haotian with burning gazes. Their expressions were full of admiration, as if they were greeting Tao Xian. The 3 leaders were Feng Xiaoyao, Du Gabo and Bailey Xuanzi. At this moment, their strengths had already reached the Imperial Dao realm. Even though he was still a core disciple at the moment, he would soon be assigned to an important position in one of the 7 main halls. In the future, these people would inherit the position of Temple Lord and become one of the higher-ups of the Langia sacred ground. As for the other talented true disciples, they would also enter the 7 main halls and take up some elder positions. At this moment, these talented successor disciples were all shocked. All of them were willing to submit to Jun Haotian without exception. Haha, all of you rise. Jun Haotian smiled when he saw this scene and allowed them to rise. After that, Jun Haotian directly walked towards the divine hall and sat at the head of the hall. As for all the successor disciples, they respectfully followed behind him. Now, Jun Haotian's position as Holy Master was already set in stone. No one could take it away from him. These true disciples were naturally extremely respectful to him. After that, June Haoyan told the true disciples about the matters discussed in the Langya sacred ground. He ordered them not to leave the sacred ground during this period of time. Just like that, 5 days passed quickly, and the Langya conference was about to begin. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.